consider more and more that this is a podcast that you're watching the recording of, as opposed to a slickly produced TikTok channel or something insane like that, right? YouTube, you either have a lot of help making the videos, or you're going to give up a lot of your life alone, which is what happened, for a while there with Rover Everlasting. And then Peter helped, and it was a lot for Peter to carry. I mean, there's so much to try to do to produce video on a regular basis. So so the camera stuff here is more just, we have the channel and people watch, they don't mind. And, who was it? Ivan in the Morning? I think it was Ivan in the Morning. He got in trouble for being racist and stuff. But he was a long-time broadcaster, I believe, out of Philadelphia, wore a cowboy hat. And his radio show, morning show, Talk Drive Time, was, I think, was a TV show too. And they just had cameras in the studio. And there's nothing else going on. It was just, you didn't even see us. He never looked at the camera. Like you looked at him from the side. Howard Stern kind of does this too. Okay. Right. So, and Joe Rogan, honestly. They have a slicker studio. But I think you look great. I've been working to get the best light in the room on you, and I'm pretty sure we're there now. Thank you. We finally have got that, and now there's some other dynamics that it allowed to really smooth out this space for me over behind and make it what I want it to be. So and although here as I did all the camera stuff, I really wanted to get a complete shot of that right there, and then whatever's to the side, it is what it is. So hey everybody, Jesus Christ has risen from the dead. That makes you immortal now. He paid for you. I reversed it. It's still true. And he's not going to be long anyway in making good on this promise that is already here by faith, soon to be revealed by sight, sooner than you think. In fact, the answer to prayer is tomorrow morning already. That's the resurrection of Jesus Christ at work through the Holy Spirit in the water that seals it, the food that feeds it, and the truth that is Christianity. You found us here at Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meridith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meridith.
And welcome to the show. Your questions, Bible answers, some of our nonsense, all out of this here Lakewood Hills, Illinois, part of the sometimes confusing county of Winnebago, where laws may or may not be built upon documents from counties in Wisconsin that have links that may or may not be broken. That's the collapse of society. We're not going to talk about all that. I don't want to go into that one at all. But I thought it'd be fun to tell the story in like the riddle way that I just did. And no, we're here to talk about walking through the Vale of Tears and not getting distracted by the sirens. The sirens. What kind of sirens? The woo 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 ones, or the come and follow me to temptation and death ones, right? Not get distracted as you walk the way. Turn aside neither to the right nor the left, but Bible-believing Christian that you are, make it to the end, right? Know that that's foreordained. It's not like, am I gonna make it? No, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it. So like Jesus is risen, right? So yeah. Today we got questions about Genesis 32. Questions about, not until I say I do. Got a real kind of maybe long question about that one. Some praise for us that also leads to a good kind of side study on Psalm 119. And then more, all with me attempting to manage that screen way over there from right here for you out there in listener land, that you might see the glory of my studio. We got a rabbit on stage. Sweet Rabbit, don't miss him.
Yes, he's our, I don't know what he is, but he comes.
He's our comfort bunny.
He comes.
They've talked about getting him a vest.
Oh, yes. He would not love it.
We could probably update everybody and let them know that our boy Aurelius has been, surrendered to authorities, failing better options, and that has been a marvelously unexpected, good, painful growth pattern for every person in this family to come to terms with what we all needed together and individually in some like emotional maturity growth, probably post TV land failures on my part, at least as parenting, that like leads us to needing this kind of humans are a pack learning that the dog brought to us, and yet also seeing nature is broken, like that too, like really to our face is hard. But each of us kind of standing stronger on the other side and being like, well, now what? As opposed to like, I'm broken, I can't, how could I ever go on without dear Aurelius, which is kind of, it felt that way for a moment.
Yeah.
Or 3 or 10.
Well, you invest so much time and heart into a project, and it's hard to see the project come to completion.
Especially when the project's got eyeballs, eyeballs and sniffy smells, all these things. Yeah. So, but on we go. And like right in a row almost, right? Another series. We come to the end of the spring quarter for the Hebron resident fellows. There we go, resident fellows. Yep. And one's gonna stick around a little longer, and but the other one effectively graduating from his year. Our first school year graduate, a full year, the Hebron Collegium Gap Year Bible School for Men in Lakewood Hills, Illinois, and sending him on his way with rejoicing.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about it this morning as I sat outside, and see if I can just get it in the one sentence again. So what happened was, this family took a risk, and they sent their kid to somewhere that wasn't college for a year. And instead of coming back, not having gone to church weaker and maybe even converted to communism, right? Which is a religion of Gnosticism. He's going home right now, like strong in his faith and ready to figure out what his family needs from him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. There's the model, proof of concept. Thank you, Jesus, for our young man who all let his fellowship remain quiet. Won't dox him. But what a wonderful thing. He's going to take with him a year of Sons of Solomon prayer discipline, complete with through the Bible nearly 2 times, and a trajectory of study developed in consultation with me, but also just exploring our library of good things and coming to terms with what he thought he needed to learn and where to go next. And what's super cool about that, I had this really neat idea. Asking both of these guys to give me their bibliography, because each of these guys has been in at least 5 different books every single week for the entire quarter, right? Wow. And so what that meant was they explored, and as they explored, their web kind of closed in a direction. Early on, it was like all over, and it goes. And so the guy who's going away, I mean, he just did kind of a 1-year resident master course, freshman level. Right, freshman level master course in human psychology and dynamic pack relations. Human relationships, family systems, and man and woman distinctions. And then our other guy is like, his study is all in ad fontes. Classica, and I didn't say that right at all, but like to the original sources of classics. I mean, Thucydides and Pythagoras and all these kind of ancient names you might have heard of. He's just read some of them, like not the whole book every time, but a lot of them, right, all quarter. And so you have these very different tracks. And what school in the world you can get that at? Well, with this one. Yeah. This one. They got on the jiu-jitsu mat, both of them. Neither of them has earned their first stripe as a white belt, as if I could give such a thing, but they know it. They just got a taste. But all that too. I mean, what a season. And so that's then coming to an end, though, in the sense that we're not going to have any full-time summer quarter residents. Right. Not
at this point.
Not sure. Yeah. Right. And not sure what the fall quarter looks like either. No one on docket. Although I just got an email this morning. Hey. Coming through one night, me, 3 sons on the way.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So again, the Hebron Collegium Gap Year Bible School for Men in Lakewood Hills, Illinois, also is a spiritual retreat center and a Lutheran hostel right here in the middle of the United States. So contact us. Come on through. See what it's like. Leave a deposit of your faith here and take with it the encouragement of those who are here to send. So yeah. I mean, that's pretty bigger than my puppy going away. much bigger and better, really.
Yeah.
But also creates this big openness here for us where we're going to have plenty to do, but less of it's going to be about other people, other animals. Like it's going to be the house, our family, and our neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's...
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe that's what all y'all got all the time, right? But for us, it's going to be like, ooh, what's this like? And with two houses still, right? You know, managing as volunteers the collegium,
Right.
When there's no one there to help us and all that. So, although I think the neighbors are going to be good resources here too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting to count up the actual months that we had with the student who spent the whole quote unquote year. It was only 7 months. If you take all of the chunks of time that you go for like Christmas break or Easter break, then there was some early on just family economy that he needed to care for and so help out with. And so that took him away for a little bit. But the fact that he accomplished all that he did in that short amount of time is really crazy. It's really wonderful.
So the learning process here too, as the resident, what was the phrase? One of our members gave me a good way of describing. As the resident agile coach, apparently the agile coach is a certain type of teacher. Don't know much more than that, but I've been pegged apparently, and it's a good thing. The resident agile coach trying to figure out then, gap year Bible school for men. Okay, what does this look like? 7 days a week, 365. You read the Bible 4 hours. We do jiu-jitsu 3 hours. You eat, you sleep, you get up, we do jiu-jitsu, read the Bible, we talk, you go to sleep, wake up again, do it tomorrow. Like, that's cool, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's discipleship. Wow, look at that. I mean, you'd have soldiers at the end of that, right? Well, I'm probably not equipped personally to pull off that time frame with everybody at the moment, nor is that quite the way I'd go about it. But learning, between there and it's a flop house, come hang out, do whatever you want, right? Where we land, and then so thinking of the year now as 3 quarters with space between each quarter. That's your fourth quarter. So the fourth quarter isn't really study; it's just kind of empty time, space time theory. The final frontier. It is it's vacation, right? Or a time where there is less going on. Mm-hmm. So the resting quarter spread, and then you have fall, spring, and summer. And as I look at neighborhood dynamics, family dynamics, church dynamics, so he was here for the fall and spring quarters. He was here for what would be the normal school year.
Yeah, exactly.
7 months. Well, how much, and let's get back to what he did every day, right? How much time do you actually spend studying and in class that first year at college? How much time? How many hours a week, really? For sure, really. Right? Not as much, not much, really. Like someone's like, oh, the syllabus, right? But most people are like, hey, where's the party? So in that 7 months, those 2 quarters, he got solid, I'd call it like 2 years worth of study. Yeah. And really, I mean, it's abbreviated. We've hacked it a little bit. We're not doing it the way that they say you have to do it. But you come talk to this kid or hear what this kid's saying about human relationships. It's the wisdom that drops from his lips that I'm like, wow, can I write that down? That, and then seeing the summer quarter as being one in which everything's exactly the same. There's just less of it. So it's not vacation. Like it's here, we're here, it's going on, but there's just less drive from I'm checking up on what you're reading. The agile coach is getting even more agile. He's stretching. You work while he stretches, okay? Because for him to help you, he's got to stretch. He's up, It's like, and so that's the agile coach relationship that has to develop, right? Where the coach benefits from the teaching relationship, but only if it doesn't infringe upon his own learning, right? And then he has to stay as a learner in front of the other learners. And that's, mastery and apprenticeship and a bunch of other more ancient ways of thinking about it. So, I mean, it's just still, again, what a successful endeavor, even with the many strange, unexpected unsuccesses, like the investment in the home security system that Scared us more than it scared anybody else.
I know, really. He had such great potential.
He did. He had incredible potential.
He was a really good dog.
Hey, if you got questions you would like me or Meridith to answer here on the show, the way to really guarantee they get here on the show is to send them through the contact page at madpxm.com. That's Mad Christian Mondays, which, by the way, we're in, think tank level conspiracy theory to the ends of the earth talks about some of those long expected changes and hopes for Mad Christian Mondays. We're maybe toward the light at the end of the tunnel with where that's going to go, and that's exciting for me to think about that. It does mean this though, and I guess I can jump ahead to that. We are looking for a new volunteer who would like to join the team at Mad Christian Mondays specifically. That is with the newsletter that comes out every week, giving you a summary of the most important world-shaking events from a very calm and collected Christian perspective that nonetheless understands what the metaphor of the red pill means. And so what we're looking for on the Mad Mondays side of things is what I'm calling a background manager, Mad Mondays background manager. We're not looking for a writer. We're not looking for an editor. We're looking for kind of the website guru, engineer, nerd who doesn't really want to be seen or anything, but wants to make sure everything behind the scenes, all the I's get dotted, all the T's get crossed, and you don't mind working with whatever online app resource we're kind of testing and fielding at the moment. And so if that sounds like it's something that would be interesting to you, to be behind Mad Mondays and then the rest of what Mad Christianity puts out every single week, because once you're on the team, you're on the team, and there's a lot of overlap. I can't say we're a family. It's online. You're doing your work through a phone. It's pretend, right? It's not even real. It's a dream. But you'll meet some really cool and faithful Christians and find yourself connected to a little network community that will enhance your own skill set and whatnot, as usually any good online network will. So we're looking for that new Mad Mondays background content manager. You can reach out through the contact page at madpxm.com. Get the scoop then on what goes on next as well, right? So that's that. Question, comments, and likes always help. I've given up on ever breaking any of this little bubble of YouTube numbers that has everlastingly been the view of the world from this YouTube account, if I can say that. You never get above a certain thing. Why is that? Well, maybe we're not that interesting, but I think you disagree, right? Yeah. So anyway, questions, comments, that's what makes that work a little bit better for us whenever those algorithm gods decide to look the other way, gaze away from us with the eye of Sauron. Okay, we'll be done with that one for today. That's a blank one. We'll keep that for later. We'll be done with that one for today. While I'm doing announcements, third annual Sons of Solomon Muster is just around the corner. That's also here, Memorial Day weekend in Lakewood Hills, Illinois. You can come Sunday afternoon, tour the Collegium, get involved in the open mat with the jiu-jitsu mat. I would love to have you for that. Sunday night there's a prayer vigil. Monday downtown mustering to hand out Sons of Solomon packets at the big parade down there. Maybe give some witness to our faith. That would be something for Lutherans to do. Get out of the box. Hey, how are you doing? You're at this parade? Are you believe in Jesus? Like how brave can you be, guys? Are you listening? And then barbecue and networking lakeside afterwards. Find out more, sonsofsolomon.net. Reach out there, and there is info on lodging. If you are a guy alone, you can lodge at the Hebron Collegium. Can't put the ladies in there, but yeah. So one more announcement. I just mentioned Sons of Solomon, sonsofsolomon.net. This should have been there before. We kind of had the resources. We just never think about it. Mm-hmm. But it fits with everything. So you can always get the content of the Sons of Solomon booklet at sonsofsolomon.net directly. Like you can read this booklet on the screen there, right? Okay. You could also get a download that you could then print out on 8.5 by 11 paper there. But now you can download this document. Oh. Okay. So if you want to print 1,000 Sons of Solomon documents and then charge people money for them, you can. I mean, I don't think that's what it's built for. If you want to print 1,000 of them and give them away, you'll find out how powerful this thing really is when you start investing in it. And that's the idea. That's why it's in copyrighted 2022 in the Creative Commons attribution, so that the only thing you can't do is take credit for it or change it and say it's it. That's the only thing you can't do. But otherwise, you can make this, you can take this, that's the point. It's not a virus, it's leaven. It's the good leaven. Jesus talks about good leaven. Good leaven, bad leaven. So, Sons of Solomon booklets available for download on sonsofsolomon.net. That is exciting to me.
Yeah, that is exciting.
Yeah. Third printing. Went to our third printing. Those documents are still free to be sent to you. Sons of Solomon, Daughters of Wisdom, both needed to be reprinted. I think we got 2,000 of each, I believe. And the hope now is that by the next time around, we've figured out how to balance the those of you who like to donate, and a lot of you do, we actually have made more money in postage donated than in the postage that it costs, but that's usually what the donation is. And I want to figure out what it would take to say, okay, well, here's what it actually costs us to print and ship these. That's the suggested donation. But again, we'll do it. If you can't do that, we'll send it to you. But to try to get it self-sustaining as a and one of the initial avenues of Dark Shore, which is a nonprofit that manages and has started the Hebron Collegium, as well as is trying to jumpstart Mad Christian Mondays as an endeavor that's not mine, right? As a Christian network news source and all these things. So Dark Shore is our actual nonprofit. I don't talk about it a lot because it's Dark Shore. It's kind of a secret. But although it's not, because the amount of time I'm spending with a lawyer filling out forms is not secret to me. But that's actually been really good too, because crazily, could you believe the U.S. government's questions caused me to ask some really important things about what the Hebron Collegium is, and make sure that we clarify that. So, God be praised for good government, or even bad government when it does good things. So, yeah. You didn't mean to send me off on that big tangent, but I did. It was a lot of announcements.
Oh.
We got questions. But we got you,
well,
too.
Thank you. Thank you for going through it all.
Yeah. Did you have anything besides a rabbit? I know you have thoughts. We've had a really good week. Hard week, but I feel like it's been a good week.
It has been it's been one of those weeks where you just feel like, well, you can tangibly feel God stretching you. And stretching is so good. It's so beneficial, but it doesn't always feel good in the moment.
No.
So
it's kind of like, so when I first do my stretches, I'll do, is it mountain? When you stand just straight up, and then I just stand as high and tall as I can to get my back straight. And then I slowly go to the full forward fold as much as I can, which is always pretty tight and almost embarrassing. It's like, wow, have you ever stretched before? You can't even get to, I thought I could touch my toes. And then I go back to the mountain, and then I do my second one, and that's my real stretch. And I've actually learned now, don't even try on the first one, just hang there. Just hang there for a little bit. Go up and go down, and then on that second stretch, after I've gotten past the hurt, there's this kind of like, oh, moment. And that's what, after all that work, last week was, right? It was like just that little moment at the end of the second full, I really finally got the stretch where I wanted to go, right? And but there's like the residual work feeling that got you there, right? And still the pain of not stretching still there, right? Yeah, I love it.
And why do we stretch? Well, we stretch so that we can stay mobile, stay agile.
Yeah.
And so if you apply that thinking to just life and God stretching us, why does he stretch us? To keep us focused and so that we're not stagnant, so that we don't get comfortable here in this life, and the focus remains on the resurrection, the day of resurrection.
Yeah. Pliability is strong, right? And over hardening is actually very brittle.
Mm-hmm.
It's not strong, right? So pliability, martial arts talk about being like water, right? Able to flow. Last night we had our Friday evening with the downpours and all. We had our summer Friday barbecue, Hebron community area neighborhood gathering, and I got to sit out and chat with the guys a bit by the threshing floor, smoke some cigars, and we got into a number of different topics from Title 42 ending to what was the other end of it? Another weird political one that was like so far removed from that, to deep into Proverbs chapter 2, Hebrew, and then from there to Genesis chapter 1, Hebrew, and all of this is to get to pliability. Genesis chapter 1 verse 2 then we went through pretty carefully, and it's the first time I ever taught anybody what I've kind of been discovering there, taking a vocabulary study of Genesis very slowly, and I really just barely through verse 2. But you have in the beginning, God creates the heavens and the earth, right? So there's this thing that's there that's more than one thing, but the earth, not the heavens, the earth, the one thing, is formless and void, it usually says, and there's some really cool physics, particle physics kind of thinking philosophically in those words, if you go hunting for it. But it's formless and void, and darkness is over the face of the deep. The word darkness there is pretty unique. The word deep is like the abyss, the nothing. And then it says, and the Spirit of God was usually translated hovering over the waters, which, okay, he just created the heavens and the earth and there's nothing there. What are the waters, right? Okay, that's fun. Okay, but we'll leave that for a moment. And actually, I won't leave that. Let's just say, imagine for a second that everything that God created when he created the heavens and the earth, that is the earth, was initially just subatomic aether. Okay? I know, aether, loaded term, but just imagine it with me for a second, right? That everything, when God creates the heavens and the earth as a distinction, the earth is this aether, this potential for matter. It is formless and void, but it is in existence now, right? It's underneath the atoms, whatever that is that we keep trying to find, right? Or break or whatever. And then that thing that is darkness. Like there's not light there at all. Light's in heaven, right? The earth is darkness. It says it right there in verse 1 or verse 2. So darkness over the deep, right? And then, so now imagine that this aether that you can't see anything is also like a raging ocean of nothingness. So it is chaotic and massively moving, right? And when I say nothingness, that's wrong. It's like pre-matter, massive ocean of pre-matter, chaos and rage and change. And then it says God's Spirit is, again, hovering over this. And you go into that word hovering, and like pliability is kind of the meaning of the word, okay? Because it's not just like it's not like the dove, right? It's not like he's floating like a flying saucer. It doesn't mean that. It more means just kind of able to go with whatever is there, like floating on top of, right? Like you're upon the water, right? Like you're riding upon the water, only it's a chaotic ocean. And so I mean, really, and the Spirit of God was surfing upon the waters, like he's riding the waves, right? Pliability. I bring it up because surfing is a pliability discipline. So is jiu-jitsu, right? So is yoga. So is praying the Psalms. And that this is part of humanity's strength and what we're created for. And you see, not just us, the whole earth is created for this tension, balance, revolution, not in a overthrowing kind of way. It's so much fun to get into the Hebrew of Genesis and Proverbs because they just are so deep. Each word you could just talk for an hour about.
Absolutely.
Where it comes from, what it means, and then what it does after this in the Bible and all that. So,
yeah, I think one of the hardest things that we struggled with regards to Aurelius leaving was that it's not that he left, we had to make him depart, but it was this idea that we saw the negative side of having him in our midst.
Mm-hmm.
We felt it. And yet there was also good and
Mm-hmm.
blessing. And
Mm-hmm.
so how to balance that in our hearts and allow ourselves to see and be thankful for
Mm-hmm.
the good,
Mm-hmm.
even though we know or knew that certain actions needed to be taken, and that was for a good reason, you know, getting him to the next phase of his own life as a service dog. Like, okay, what?
You know, his place in the created order,
mean?
Right? Well, yeah, his place in the created order.
How are you serving? And I mean, if you think about the vocation of a service animal, like he did serve us in all the way to the end.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
he through the sacrifice of him,
Yep.
you learned extremely valuable lessons.
Yep.
That then you were able to apply to your human relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids learned to let go of
Mm-hmm.
things that they cared for,
Mm-hmm.
and invested time and energy.
Does he want out?
He wants to go to the restroom.
Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and take him to the restroom, and I'll try to remember what you just said, because that was good. But now that leaves me in the place where I leave you all the time, where I have to come up with something to say on the spur of the moment, and I haven't planned for this one exactly. So, hey y'all, how you doing? It is. I have thought at times what I would do if I had the mic by myself again, and most of those things turn into some form of RevFisk Raw, right, where I'm doing storytelling over 2 or 3 hours, hardcore, not history, but Old Testament and all this kind of stuff. And I really would love to do that again, but the space isn't there. The sermons are that in some way. So if you're hungry for that stuff, I mean, really listen to Saved as a podcast and see what I'm doing over time with that sermon time that we have every week. But in the meantime, the fight against the beast continues to be the big thing in my world. And by the beast, I mean the global, tyrannical, Nimrodian, ancient government, evil devil scheme that's ever tried to destroy Christianity from the days of the sons of Cain all the way down to the present, through Nebuchadnezzar, through Cyrus, and so forth, right, until Rome and our Lord. And yet we're told by John that this beast is going to continue to grow and just destroy and devour all the way to the end of the age. The real red pill is to realize that the beast has been here all along, and you kind of thought it was a great place to live, and now you know that this beast is burdensome to the cross of Jesus Christ, and that officially is turning swords against trust in God and trust in the Word of God. So how do you fight back against this beast now that it has brainwashing devices that it can sell you because you want them, right?
How do you come across the border?
How do you have, right? How are you going to track these guys?
Sorry,
the pondering for me that I was kind of getting towards sharing is, outside of what you and I show everybody, I continue to ask, how do I apply the proverb, the wicked forsake Torah, the righteous fight back, those who hear Torah fight back. How do you fight back against the noise? How do you fight back against the tech without being like, the picture on the wall is the devil. Beware the picture. Pictures are evil, right? Like, but it's not. That's not what idolatry is about. It's not about pictures are evil. It's what we do with pictures that's evil, and that's what the brainwashing devices don't tell you they're doing to you over time, is they're turning you into a worshiper of the image, and that's the idolatry. Here's a thought I didn't plan to share today, but I don't think it's clarified enough yet. But you can't not worship an image if you don't believe it's possible for you to worship the image. Most people don't think it's possible to worship an idol, Worship a statue. That's stupid. I would never do that. Who would do that? So stupid people. Hold on, I gotta check my text messages. You know, like, I mean, if you think you can't worship it, like it's impossible, well, then you can't complete the commandment to not worship it. Mm-hmm. There's no commandment. There's no law. It's just, it's nonsense. Idolatry is a nonsense word. Except, you know, St. John, in the end of his first letter, is like, no, kind of a big deal. Like that. Worry about that. The apostles, Acts 15. Right? Oh, Gentiles, idolatry. Worry about that. Right? And we're like, oh, you can't even do it. Who would worship a statue today? Huh? Yeah. And I could, you know, let me share this new guru I found. They're talking about this amazing thing that you can do. Sounds like magic, but really it works. Like, we're so still enmeshed in all of it. We just covered it with this materialistic language to make it seem like we're not idolaters. And so how do you fight back? That's what I continue to ponder, and then to apply the Mad Christian dialectic, which is let the spittle flow and incise your gates.
As you talk about idolatry, I'm thinking about what the various events of the past 2 weeks, because it was one thing after another in this same realm for us. Mm-hmm. Animal husbandry, essentially.
Yeah, that's right.
And
stewardship of the earth. Mm-hmm. Really, like the earth includes all these creatures, not just stuff I can steal and eat.
And so, what is our tendency to putting our focus, putting our worth or value in the vocation that God has given us rather than in the Creator? So finding our worth in creation rather than finding it in His Word. Mm-hmm. After one blow and then another blow, I said, it's okay. Now I have more time to focus on this other
one thing. I know.
And Jesus was like, oh no, let me take that one too.
I know. Do you see where I sometimes get that, like, don't say that mentality a little bit though? like you have to eat your own words sometimes.
But then I needed to be stretched in that way.
Yeah. Let a righteous man.
I'm not going to go around tiptoeing with my words just in case Jesus
wise.
smite me.
Let a righteous man rebuke me.
I deserve the smiting.
Let a righteous man rebuke me. It is oil to my head. Right? So how much more the Father in heaven? Yeah. That's awesome.
So
That's awesome's a bad word. That's glorious. Go on.
So I think about our tendency towards idolatry and how, the first commandment is you shall have no other gods.
Yep.
Evidently, it is written on our hearts pretty heavily to want to seek God. And that was like the whole reason that they fell, right? To be like God and know good and evil. And so, God be praised that in a moment where I misplace my devotion, He's still in charge and says, oh, no, let me lead you so that you would not fall away. It's like his promise to never leave us nor forsake us.
Yeah.
And that's like a really good promise. We look to that as comforting and so forth. Sometimes the comfort comes with a little bit of a pinch or a little bit of a smack.
Well, there's this weird thing where the cells that you have that feel pleasure are the same ones that feel pain, and they're on the same spectrum, and in some way, some places when you're in pain, that's when it feels the best to be touched, right? Isn't that strange, right? And yet it's very much at the heart of what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, you began with use the words value and worth. I'm super turned on now to the idea of dignity.
Mm-hmm.
Dignity. Value and worth are what people who don't know their dignity then must seek, right? They must prove their dignity, that they have value and worth. Seeing that, and then you're talking about its relationship to what you worship, right? So yeah, to worship Christ is to be given dignity right away. To take the vocations that God has built for you and then worship them, that is, seek your dignity in what those things manifest for you. Yeah, that's to justify yourself before the living God based on your works, as if your works weren't what he gave you in the first place as a gift, right? What do you have that you have not received? And so to worship creation rather than the Creator is the distinction between unbeliever and believer. Regardless of what you call yourself, your religion is worthless if all you can do is talk and you go off and you worship the world. Who cares what you say about baptism if you don't actually renew every morning? I mean, really, the baptism still stands, but you're not whole because you don't believe, right? And that's kind of the issue here, that red pill, 2020 America, hey, Christians, none of us believed as much as we thought we did. None of us did. And now it's like, repent. And we're all like, repent of what? Well, that's it. That's the quest. Repent of what? I'll start you on one. Praying the Psalms. Like, we didn't. We stopped. Bad for us. All of us. Right? If your church body never did pray them, well, I'm sorry for you. But like the vast majority of Christianity has just lived from the Psalms forever. And so, like, since they were written. And we were just talking about this with someone else, and you got to print a new hymnal. And you're like, well, let's take out all those Psalms about how the enemy needs to be stopped because we're past those times. We don't have to pray against enemies anymore. What
frustrated me about that conversation, and it's not that I was frustrated by the conversation, but it's the topic of conversation with regards to removing Scripture from a community book, is that it was so that we could put more of man's words in.
Ultimately.
Now, I know that they're supposed to be about Scripture, about Christ, about what God has done for us in Christ. But when I was listening to your conversation and realizing, we have elevated our words above the one who created us, his words. Like, that bothers me.
So the shared heresy, okay, I'm using the word heresy very lightly here. The shared heresy of both parties in the worship wars in any church is the idolatry of our songs, the idolatry of our music. That's the shared hardening that every congregation now has to repent of in some way and discover that whatever your song might be doing, it better be about Jesus, right? And not about how it's our song, my favorite hymn, always this way, or just heard it on the radio, totally Spirit-filled, got to use it, right? Like, both sides, there's a way in which the song of the church is the glory of our faith. It is the highlight of our faith. Heaven will not be without lots of singing. Lots of singing. Whistle while you work, even, maybe, that's a horrible reference. But song all the day, right? But the song won't be about the song. The song will be about the Word of God, who is Christ our Lord, who is the bringer of both law and gospel, wisdom and truth. And so then right now, to see that we have been blessed by God with the rise of Western Christian song that you pick. Was it the Baroque period that was the highlight of all Christian song? Or is it right now with the ability of many Christian artists to do high professional level music and have all sorts of people all over the world be filled in their faith from that via messages and not even in the church but just outside it. Which one of these is the greater blessing of Christianity and to the world through music, right? The rise of Western music as it is, even right now, with all of the studio production and all this, is built on the foundation of a philosophy of music developed by Christianity for the church. And we saw it so good now the pagans have taken it and are using it to run the world. You know, the songs, the little ditty, hot pocket and all that, right? So like, you couldn't do that with Eastern music until Western music came along. And all this is to say that we had it so good, and now indeed it is the idol. It is the idol of the age. And you combine it with the talking image. Now you have a statue that dances and sings to you. I mean, wow, what a thing. Let's stare at it for hours. Oh, let's put it in the room and we'll say, why are the kids watching MTV? We don't say, why are they all watching the idol, right? Why are they watching MTV? I don't know. It's going to ruin them. Yeah, it probably will. Oh, well. And, yeah. Yeah, you are what you watch.
And you mentioned vocation. Stop me if this is too dangerous of a topic, but worshiping your own vocation. I'm sorry, but there's a salty holiday coming up tomorrow.
It is kind of salty, isn't it?
That
don't forget.
Don't
forget how salty it is. Otherwise, you would not be understanding the gentleness and the love.
There's so much that is lost on this concept of Mother's Day that I and lost in it, and the worship of one's vocation, and this idea that because I chose to be a mother, I must be worshipped now. That makes me really uncomfortable, and that's this
choice gift language right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how dare I think, even if I wanted to be a mother, that I chose to have those children created inside of me.
The denigration of the individual human spirit is so evident in feminism's hatred of the role of woman in creation, that if you don't see it yet, like you're a fool. Sorry, you're a fool. So you can hate me for that. You can be like, oh, Pastor Fisk said that. Maybe I should do that one. So it's vitriolic, right? Mm-hmm. Against woman. Really.
It's a very weird conundrum. Mm-hmm.
Because the last thing I'm supposed to do tomorrow is say, it's Mother's Day. Hey, all you 18-year-old young ladies, get married and have children as soon as possible.
Right.
Like, I'm not supposed to say that. Be a mother soon. Forget college. Get married, have kids. I'm not supposed to say that. But it seems like that would be what Mother's Day would be, the day you'd say that. Mm-hmm. Right? That'd be the time of year you'd say that. And like, can you imagine, guys? I mean, a number of you are pastors, right? Can you imagine? Like, even the ones who love you would not be happy with you after that announcement. It's amazing.
And then the amount of fear that you hold in your heart as far as like, if I have forgotten.
Oh yeah. Well, I have. I've been. It's been very clear that there are certain holidays that you need to say certain things for, and this is not the only one. But, and that's like sociocultural dynamic that I don't think it is exactly idolatry. Like, there's something about like, every year on this day we recognize that we live here. Like okay, like that's all cool, right? Like different peoples are going to have different kinds of this. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing, but it is the spirit of is it anger that arises on the lack of full recognition, right? So the Christian doesn't get what the Christian wants. The Christian's supposed to be like, all right, thanks, Jesus. I'll figure it out tomorrow, right? And then this is not that, right? Whenever I've been rebuked for forgetting a holiday announcement of any kind, it's not like, it doesn't feel like, well, the fact that it's being said to me means that person hasn't just kind of gone on and said, he just forgot, he'll remember. Instead, they are going to put me in my place and make sure I know that this holiday is so important that no matter what I said about Jesus today, no matter what we talked about, forget the Lord's Supper, go in peace, you are free, but you didn't
talk about my vocation,
worship the beast,
and thank me
Worship the beast.
For how well I do my vocation.
Do what the TV tells me to do. Which, I mean, the only reason that anybody in the congregation would say that is because the TV has told them to say that over a generation and a half.
And they do. Ooh, it's gross. All these different things that you're supposed to do to say thank you, it overwhelms me. Because I think about like, okay, so this year I'm supposed to buy my mother a solitaire necklace. What am I supposed to buy her next year? Like, how do I go and trump that?
Huh.
Eventually, by the time she's like 80, I'm going to have to send her on a cruise. That's a lot of money.
It's all a pyramid scheme. They're just trying to roll you through the cycle of the market. You consume.
So it's embarrassing. This is what's wrong. It's not what's wrong, but this is how it impacts me. I get embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
I get embarrassed that we have this day because I'm like, really, I appreciate the thanks, but you don't, Lord, when did I give you a cup of cold water?
Sure.
Like, really, that oughtn't that be our way of looking at how we fulfill our vocations?
Right.
That's just the task that was set before me today.
Why don't we call it childbearing day?
That would be lovely. I would love that.
Because that's what a mother does, right? She bears a child. I'm pretty sure. I guess men can be mothers these days too.
Pain in childbirth. The celebration of pain in childbirth day.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's truly what it is.
Right.
You think about the Hallmark cards and what they say, and it's like, yep, we're celebrating the curse of woman.
Yeah. As if it's the gospel, though.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As if it's the kingdom,
and
it's not.
At the same time, it is such a what an amazing task we have been given to bring forth life, as Eve was named. Like, we get to participate in this beautiful forwarding of creation, and yet at the same time, it's not because we say, I'm going to do this, because you cannot do it on your own. You can't even if you were to mechanically take the parts of the man that you need to create another human, God still decides whether or not that human lives or dies.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your decision.
Yeah.
So I'm a little salty. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you just said it's the day for you to be salty. That's what this day is for you, for you all.
Oh no, I don't see, and that's where it's like, oh, I don't want to be lumped in. Ugh. Not with that.
I will not lump you in with that in my heart.
There are certain times when I think more clothing is better. I could just hide myself in more clothing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that the burqa is really the solution to secondhand embarrassment, but the embarrassment, shame, but here's the thing though. What you are is you're still letting this story that isn't even real tell you how to feel by means of your proximity to it. And what the Christian is empowered to do is to stand in the middle of anybody else's story and be like, your story ain't nothing. This is like hot wind. Can you smell that? What just came out? That's how it feels to me. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying I've got this all wrapped up in a corner here, but I watched St. Paul and what he does, and he says, imitate him. And then you can say, well, that's wrong. He's selfish. And you can be like, no, really, try. Like, Jesus is going to help. And what he does is he walks into any scenario, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ as a true fact, as the most important thing he could really talk about, just is the most important thing he could really talk about. And he doesn't, I don't know. I'm sure he talked about normal stuff with people, but like it just changes who he is. And then that means that, yeah, sure, I'm talking with Aquila and Priscilla by the sea, and it's really nice and pretty, and I'm enjoying being an apostle. And then I'm talking to Nero, and he's going to kill me. And you know what? All right, here's what I'll say. Like your story is not greater than my story. And the story then of being lumped in with this class of idolaters, whoever would lump you in with this is, well, they're not understanding the justification of the godly by Christ. They're looking poorly upon a sister for her calling out the problem as being part of it. They'd be a very weird person. And in that way, I mean, a person whose discernment you needn't really trust that much. And so, fearing the stigma and stereotype of the liar's story being applied to you by other liars is what we always got to get over.
Exactly.
Got to get over it.
Right. It's, yeah. You're absolutely correct. My thoughts keep going back to, I'm just kind of on repeat, I guess. I must be adrenalized or something.
Dr. Adam Kuntz said, Paul said, imitate me, and it changed a lot of things. Took a long time, but imitate me. Paul said it. It means something. Yeah. Go on repeat. Say it again.
Well, I was thinking about the fact that how unfortunate it is that a person's mindset would be, I serve everybody else 364 days, and so today you have to serve me. And that just seems backwards.
It's like what I don't like about birthdays, where people like walk around like they own the world because they were born that day, and they demand that you be happy and think they're the best thing ever, and or worse now, just scream for their toys, right? And so yeah.
And how do you
godlessness ruins everything.
Trump it every year? I just don't know. Like, that's overwhelming to think about. What can I do that's even better than last year?
Yeah. No. Today, Today can always be more today than it was yesterday. That was esoteric. Being present,
right,
is always here, and so but that's trying to get higher. That's less progress. This is another Adam Kuntzism. Brief history of power. Check it out. The advertisement got me. Oh yeah, progress. Progress is the myth, right? So if Gnosticism is the false religion, its material principle is progress. So Gnosticism is that there is a knowledge, a truth that you must find that will bring you out of what you physically are into the greater reality of what actually is. And you just don't know what that secret is, but the Gnostic guru, he does. And that movement from where you are, material and shadow, to where you will be, inner light, spiritual being, that's progress. It's progress. And everything about our Western lie right now is the belief that progress is endless and always good. Right, which both are evidently falsehoods if you look at the facts of natural philosophy, which includes history. Right. Progress. Purging then stories of progress from your mind, or using progress as a framework for discerning false stories. So the story you get done, you're like, oh, that told me I had to get better. That's progress. That's a half truth, as opposed to that told me to be. Right, and the value of Christianity in its height is that it's always today, and today's always the day of salvation. So whatever day of the year it is, it's in Christ. You see one day as opposed to another, but one person says they're all alike to me, right? And so, then now it's my birthday, and we're going to celebrate my birthday because the family always celebrates my birthday. But that's kind of underneath everything else I just said, right? It's just like that's like a footnote then, and it's become something completely different. Birthdays, holidays, they're all their own excuse now, and usually for just gluttony. Like, oh, this is the day I get to be a glutton.
Right.
Feast for strength.
Well, and for Mother's Day, it's kind of like, well, now Mom really gets to be the boss. And it's like, well, you know what?
I know.
When is she not in today's society?
That's matrilineal.
Like, hello.
Yeah, that's right. Now she gets to talk like she acts. Oh man, I'm sorry. It's so true sometimes.
Yeah, it just.
Or she doesn't. She doesn't have to hold back from the barbs. The barbs come out all the way. Yeah. I don't know that that's the way it is for everybody.
I don't think so. I know several women who are just lovely, lovely ladies, and who would never do that.
Yeah, and so for them, it probably is a wonderful gift when the flowers show up and there's a meal for them and all these things. And
you know what? That's what I'm not saying is. I'm not saying you can't do that. What I am saying, though, is when the recipient starts to expect it, then watch out, because Jesus is going to start, like, shooting down your idols, and you might not get it that day.
Yeah, that's right.
When we start to worship our vocation, he starts to come down with the hammer of God, and it doesn't feel good. Yeah, so it's a confusing thing for me emotionally to have this holiday come up. It never was confusing to me before I had older children who could think through a surprise on their own, because I could just thank Jesus that it was Mother's Day and that I was a mother and that I had a mother.
Right.
And she baptized and like brought me to the waters of baptism.
Right.
And I could thank him for my mother-in-law and my grandmother-in-law and, you know, whatever. All these different ladies who have been so formative in my life. And now, I guess the messaging, like you were saying, has just gotten a little louder. Or because of the way that you have kind of commercials in your life all the time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Unless you pay money to not have commercials, you hear the way that they're trying to form your mind to do certain things at certain times, and there's a lot of pressure. And then I just don't know that it's creating a gentle, meek woman. Or
it's very much not. It's screaming a woke Karen. It's creating woke Karens that really don't care about marriage or kids, and
right, and that's the
actually
other
prefer
thing.
to be men themselves, and then are supposed to be stuff. You know, we're all kinds of out of this world, off the deep end, crazy, lost. Like Tyre and Sidon and Phoenicia were normal places.
It's like we're being celebrated for just having the stretch marks, but then giving up the baby for adoption.
Yeah. Well,
and that's frustrating.
I mean, there's some of that.
To me.
There's some of that. I think it's more just like you mentioned, the spirit of it and the entitlement, right? It's the entitlement, right? It's not a gift to others if you expect something in return.
Right.
Yeah. And it's, you know, the comfort of the mother, the unique capacity of the mother to comfort exists precisely in the selflessness that would never say, well, you know, I've hugged you 5 times today already. You know, so I've done my job. This is the day when you hug me now, right? Like that is not the comfort that a mother uniquely can give. And so to have that be what the day's about is not like, oh, it's Mother's Day. Now everyone's going to feel really comforted with us, how comforting mom is, because she's going to have a great day. Like it's like kind of the opposite of that, pins and needles, right? But again, I think the ladies who have the gentle and quiet spirit that the Holy Spirit does impart to Christians probably have pretty good Mother's Days. They just may not be aware of how much around them is going on with this.
Well, that's the thing. Like, as a mother, you can have a Mother's Day any day. As far as, like, just thanking the Lord that you are a mother,
Absolutely.
that he's using you in this capacity. You mentioned, like, meeting a quota for hugs and then turning away your child, and how that's so not what a mother does. And I thought about a hen that we once had who did hatch eggs. They weren't even hers. We gave them to her, and she went through the process of sacrificing her own beautiful body to help make the nest comfortable, and like to a point where she was plucking out feathers to regulate the humidity of the egg and how warm and so forth the egg was, and then she would go days and days without eating, and she didn't. The thing of it is she didn't think about it. No. It just is part of who built into God created this hen to be.
Yeah, right.
And so when the chicks were all done and hatched and so forth, she didn't make them bow down and worship her. And that's what's uncomfortable about it. That, I guess I kind of got to it.
Interesting. It's like, now worship me. Now worship me. Wow.
So
that's potent. I'm just gonna leave it alone. Let it sit there. I think that's a good capstone.
We got to the conclusion there.
Wow.
Okay. That's why I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's good. So like awkward silence, right? It's like
I do have a letter that I want to respond to.
Oh,
if that's okay. Would this awkward silence be
a time for a letter?
Okay,
if I can take a break.
Yeah, sure. I received a letter while we were in Indiana with Jonathan. He was speaking at the men's event, or no, I think it's called Men's Gathering. And he was speaking, and we were all there, just kind of taking some quiet time away as the family. And then to a point where I didn't even get to hear his talks until they were posted online. So that was exciting to listen to those. I highly recommend. It's on it would be the Brief History of Power channel. You can find the third and final talk that he gave, and it is really, really powerful. I actually have not listened to the other two because I don't know how to find them. That's how much of a Luddite I am. However, okay, so this is a long story. Just to say that while we were there, he came home to our little cabin we were staying in, and with a letter from a viewer, and she, in her letter, says that she wants, I'll just read it. I wanted to thank you for sharing your experiences as a Lutheran homeschool mom. It sounded like you are ahead of us, me and my husband, in your journey based on the age of your children. We are about to enter it in terms of needing to inform the officials about our homeschooling, since our oldest one is turning 7 this autumn. I and my husband watched the homeschool clip together, and we're happy to hear the similarities in your homeschooling priorities versus ours. And then she talks about how her husband was homeschooled and she was not homeschooled, but have lived most of my life in Finland attending the public school. Having you as the already lived it, already done it, Lutheran mother, Lutheran mother, go and simplify the homeschooling into the very basics, helped me to be more confident about having my homeschooling look very simple at this point of the children's lives. So thank you. And then included in this sweet little note was some of her favorite tea from Finland. And her name, I believe, is Marta or Martha. I'm not sure. But I wanted to say thank you to you for your card. And I was earnestly going to write back to you, but I didn't know how to get a hold of you. So that's why we are thanking you on the show. Thank you for the tea. It has been enjoyed by the children quite a bit. Unfortunately, my stomach is not ready for the herbs yet. So the kids enjoyed it for me, and we're very grateful for that. And we're thankful for you and your husband and your support in what we do.
Yay.
So that's that.
Cool.
Welcome back.
Makes me feel like I should respond to something.
like you have to have a follow-up.
I guess, yeah.
You could say that week was really powerful as all the people came up to him and were like, you changed my life. And he's like,
we had a
Lord, when did I bring you a cup of cold water?
I feel like I got a really nice letter this week. So from somebody, but thank you, those of you who reach out to us and send us stuff.
It's such a blessing to receive these letters and notes. I've actually, a few years ago, I started saving the ones that came to you, just so that over the years, as we get older and have more people join our clan, our tribe, they can read them. Our kids, our grandchildren can read them and kind of know a little bit more about who you are, Jonathan. And then now in these more recent years, a little bit of what I do on the side. But yeah. So it means a lot to us that you guys reach out.
It does. And when you support us that way, that's great. And you can also support us at patreon.com/RevFisk and also at subscribestar.com/RevFisk, or go to RevFisk.com and click on support there, and that'll take you through it. Subscription model helps us keep everything going here on this side of the street near the Hebron Collegium, because for all that we do for Dark Star and Hebron, we don't take money. It's all labor of love for us at this point. And so anything you can do to help, if you want to help, if you're independently wealthy and want to become a patron of Hebron, talk to me. But otherwise, if you want to help us out, go to patreon.com or subscribestar.com. I hate asking for money. Subscribestar.com and help us out. I hate it. I
understand. It's kind of awkward.
I hate it. It sounds so like oily.
It's a part of life. I mean, we all have things that we need in order to make life continue.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, for example, I have a vacuum cleaner with duct tape on it because
it's awesome. It works because it works. Because duct tape works. That's why.
And it's broken. But I took it to my faithful husband, and he's like, I know what can fix it, and he's really good with duct tape.
You thought it was a meme.
Tape.
You thought it was a meme. You thought duct tape was a meme. It's, in fact, true. I'm not sure it'll keep a wing on an airplane, but it will do a great deal of things.
It'll at least extend the life of our vacuum. I mean, it's things like that.
And the second is like it. Painter's tape's got more uses than painting. That's a great tape right there. So
I started using it over at Hebron because we were running into issues with food just kind of being left. Hebron taught me a lot of things, but one of the things it taught me is that not everybody looks to leftovers with a keen enjoyment. And so
there's not a plan, you're saying. Not a plan to deal with the food.
Yeah.
There'll be more, don't worry about it.
So things would just sit in the refrigerator, and I'd go over and be like, okay guys, what's this? I don't know. It's been there for a long time. So painter's tape is a wonderful way to label your things in the refrigerator. And now I do it at our home too, which helps quite a bit because you have that mystery fat that's been, poured into a container and congealed, and you're like, okay,
or that cheese that everyone's like, no, I didn't open that. And you're like, it's been here a long time. Someone did.
Is anything growing?
I never eat this cheese, so I don't know who opened it. No. Yeah.
So
you were going to say something else, though, and I went into the tape.
Oh, I just was talking about how to make life happen, there are a lot of silly little expenses, like a vacuum cleaner. Like we use our vacuum cleaner all the time.
If you have carpet house, it's kind of...
And if you have...
And dust allergies. And,
if you have people in your home, like if you're actually going to live in your home. And then things like washing machines, those are so valuable. And if they break, you notice it.
That was fun. What was the name of the one, though? What's the company?
Speed Queen.
Speed Queen. If you want to go throwback, old school, just like 3 buttons, Speed Queen. You're going to pay for it, but it might last longer than that other company that brings good things to living and brings good things to life for a cheap cost that requires more help later. Yeah. Ding. Ding. What I love now is I've realized I know more trivial entertainment knowledge than my kids can imagine possibly exists, even though they have the whole world at the internet fingers, right? They still can't imagine the Fraggles. You know, I mean, there's just so much.
The Fraggles.
You know, all these things. Golly.
It's funny because it was
it
so
was,
much simpler.
Where's the beef yesterday? Came out of my mouth. Where's the beef? No, people my age don't know that one. Go.
No, because now you said it was Arby's, right?
I'm pretty sure it was Arby's.
And now we've got the beef.
Meats.
The meats?
Yeah. But
okay.
But like, Where's the Beef was like a commercial that I think I saw when I was like 3 or 4 or 5, and then it was gone.
And they peek under the bun or something?
But yeah, they open it and it's like a little tiny, you know how that you go to the place, they get the hamburger, and they did cook it a while ago, and then they did put a piece of American cheese on it that is not cold or is not hot at all, right? And so it's just mocking that kind of delivery, which is sort of Arby's thing, whatever. But the thing is that particular Where's the Beef, old woman yelling into a phone commercial, if you're 45, you remember it. If you're 42, you probably don't.
And if you're 40, you have no idea.
And so we're reaching this place where, so this didn't happen to the boomers. They all saw the same commercials kind of all the time.
Oh, sure.
And now Gen X and later, we're all going to have seen just massive, massive stuff, but different. And then year by year, the generations are going to get more segregated by that lack of experience, unless you pull out again, which is what we did and are doing. So that I don't fill up my kids' heads with a bunch of complete nonsense that they don't even know why, except for it's to sell them stuff that they're exposed to.
Well, and that's something that you mentioned on during the final talk at the men's gathering.
Yeah, mensgathering.us.
Okay, mensgathering.us. You mentioned that. So the boomers have in their brains this similar experience, similar dialogue from a certain year to a certain year. So whatever it would have been, maybe the 50s.
Yeah, it's late 50s to the
until
80s,
whenever the
late
internet
70s.
really started to be in your pocket.
So, yeah.
So what was that, like 2010, 2005?
Yeah, well, if we're going to talk generations, what's challenging is that they lived through 2 generations in power.
Well, right.
So,
but at that point, everybody, to some degree, was watching and hearing the same things.
Yes. I would say that goes up to right around sometime in the 70s to 80s, where you go from my first TV.
Yeah, because cable
had 13
television
channels,
changed.
and there were 6 channels. Okay, there were 13 buttons, and there were 6 things I could actually watch that were white noise, right? So my life has gone from that to 80s. You get cable.
Yeah, that's
Fracture
true.
number 1, cable, right? And then America Online is mid 90s.
Yeah. So you were talking about how like now we have in one home people watching all these different things and having different ideas put into their heads, different dialogues put into their heads. And so when you come together at dinner or don't come together at dinner, you don't know how to talk to each other. You have no similar
shared
words.
Tongue, no household tongue, or a very biting one is what it'll get. You know, what's shared is bite.
Yeah, and I'm noticing that's even with just I don't know. I think it starts in your preteens. You just kind of start getting a bitey tongue, but you really have to fight against that, even if you're not.
You have to train it not to bite, and if you don't have anything doing that, and instead you're training it through imitation, through seeing an image of, to speak a certain way, then that's what they're going to do. And what the current training does is it reinforces the worst instincts. Right, so let's reinforce the worst instincts through, haha, it's funny, we had a good time. And then try to get together and communicate through trespass, that is division, distinction, crookedness, that our tongues naturally do. And then from there, we're supposed to learn how to communicate, right? And the Bible is the antidote to this, even if you don't believe it to be true. if it were your only resource for teaching your children how to talk, you would all speak the same language and you have a very shared view of the world, even if the whole view was everything is opposite. I do it with the whole, I'm trying to give the atheist the game, right? Go play.
Right.
In the beginning, God did not create the heavens and the earth, and they were not formless and void, and the Spirit was not hovering over the waters, right? Do bizarro Bible. The practical, natural philosophy of it is that limited language model. Can I call that an artificial intelligence? It ain't artificial in the Bible. It's inspired. That inspired intelligence will inhabit you as a framework for conversation and communication. So even if you don't believe it, it's going to make you better at communicating, which is what it did for like the last 300 years to scholarship. And they cut off the foundation 300 years ago, and it's taken that long for the fumes to get here, to get to nothing. That's how good it was. Is.
Yeah.
Put some Proverbs in your hopper. Turn it up, make some bread.
Yeah. So essentially the only way to be a united group is if you're having the same words come in so that the conversation
there must be a golden thread at least. If you're all going to be going off somewhere else, you must come together and reparse what you got, bring it back to home, right? And what we're doing is we just don't even have homes, really. No, we have entertainment centers and beds, like good batteries.
Is that an inside joke?
Yeah, I mean, if you know the red pill metaphor well, then you know that the whole narrative or mythology of the Matrix, an explanation of the universe, the premise is that humans are being manipulated by a higher power that is wicked, cosmic horror, anybody, in order to gain from them energy. So they don't want to kill the humans. They want to keep the humans so they can feed on the humans. And in the story, it's like machines and nature, but like no demons really. Hello. They in any case, so batteries using us. I just mentioned the batteries, and then I laugh because the Matrix itself as a movie is like the best example of this whole you don't remember where's the beef, because most people today haven't seen the Matrix, and yet most people today do know what red pilling is. Isn't that strange? You know, the movie so impacted society that it became part of language, and yet the reference, the source is gone. What will red pill mean in like 30 years to this pagan nation? I mean, think about it. Like that's how the Babel works. That's how the Babel doesn't work. It unworks, right? And what we're talking about again is, you want to take the red pill. You want to get out of the Matrix. Okay, solidify your language with the language of the Bible as your epicenter, resource, and gravitational pull, and don't let anything else in unless it agrees. Which doesn't mean you can't use machines. Only a fool would be that dense and that bipolar in his thinking. Either or all the time. Which is very late modern, to either or all the time, and to forget there's an in-between, which is where understanding always is in between. It's the meaning of the word, in fact, in Hebrew. So I was laughing at the fact that no one's seen The Matrix, and the fact that it really is a good enough story that it can make you doubt reality, and that you should doubt reality because the story that they're telling you about Captain America Land isn't true. Like again, let the spittle flow, incise your gates. We're in the deep end here, right? You want to reject modernism. You want to embrace ancient Christianity. Get ready. It's gonna blow your mind, but it's free. It's freeing to live today. I said it a little bit ago, right? It's about today. Christianity is about today. Like, oh yeah, but what about tomorrow? It might not even get here, and that would be awesome. What was the word? That would be glorious. It might not even get here, and that would be glorious. But what if I need this tomorrow and I don't have it because I use it today? Well, then that was glorious. That's what the Bible teaches. You sacrificed for the good? I mean, what good is you to sacrifice if it helps you? What is that? Where have you shown growth and understanding godliness? Godliness is to see that I can sacrifice for someone else. And it might even hurt me, but it doesn't, because it's for them. Like, that's godliness. Yeah. That's Christianity. Wake up. Yeah. So we can maybe get to some questions here. I can't see the clock. I've removed myself from
10:35
from control capacities for this show. I'm far away, except for I can kind of move this mouse, and I can kind of probably put this up here like this. I can't even read that. I'm gonna have to sit up. So now this means the next thing I got to do is figure out how to have my phone. I know she sends me these in a different way, so I can look on my phone while the screen's like this and read it, and then put the phone down. That would work. Okay, everybody, Pastor Fisk, it's me. And the letter begins that way. He says, I have a question about vocational discernment. I'm 20 years old, and I'm in my third year at Hillsdale College, one of the few colleges in the country that does not take federal dollars and so does maintain its identity. I'm majoring in mathematics, which is one of my new favorite Bible words. Lately, I've been struggling with discerning what to do after I graduate. I've gotten a lot of encouragement from people that I should go to seminary. To be honest, I want Christianity to be at the center of my life as I sojourn through this world. I want to study the scriptures, pray the Psalms, get wisdom. Like, you're doing that right now, though, already, right? Like, you're already doing that, right? So, yeah. So that's the answer to your question that's coming, is that you're already doing it, right? So he says, but sometimes I think I'm not cut out to be a pastor and to preach the Bible every week. Well, that'd be a good reason not to worry about it and not to explore right now, or to deal with managing a congregation. Yeah, it's a circus. The problem is I don't know what else I would do. Well, you're studying math, aren't you? What's the math for? My questions are, can I, by God's grace, keep the Bible at the center of my life and yet decide against pastoral ministry? Yes, with a big, resounding, giant yes, and we need more guys. Where's the camera? We need more of people's doing that now and not sending every single intelligent man off to get taught how to speak jargon at the seminary. That's not all they do. The seminaries are great. But every guy does not need to go to seminary. Good Christian men can read the Bible at home. How do I discern whether to become a pastor? I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. And Caleb goes on. Also, how should the desire I have to be a good provider for future family, I've been dating a Lutheran girl for 2 months, inform what career I pursue? Is a great question. Should I want to get a high-paying job so I could provide really well for a wife and children? Or would that introduce new temptations to them that wouldn't have been there if I had just taken an average paying job? God bless Caleb. Caleb, I think that's a really valuable question there at the end. And really, you're asking, what's the difference between the desire to provide, because that's what my stewarded vocation, God gave it to me, is, and greed. Like, what's the line, right? So I want to talk about that more, but I also want to talk about seminary and math, and do I have to be a pastor first, I think, and then come back to that provision for the family stuff. And I kind of already let this one out of the bag, but I think it's really important that pastors talk to every young Christian man who does show faith about the value of the office as a thing, that God calls some to make their living from the gospel. You want a biblical definition of pastor, priest, father, bishop, whatever, right? There it is. What's the elders left in every town? It is ordained they shall make their living from the gospel. Okay. So every man should sort of be confronted and said, like, does that sound good? And if he's like, I've never thought of it before. Well, that's fine. Well, go on. Not, well, you should. See, that's where I'm like, no. Like, if the Spirit hasn't planted this, like, maybe you're the one who's supposed to plant it. That's fine. You're asking the question. You planted it. It's planted. You have to shove the seed down and bury it, And then everyone who goes feels bad that, I'm going out of guilt, effectively, is what a lot of guys end up doing, honestly. If this question is, like, should I go to seminary out of guilt? That's kind of the question you're asking. Again, the answer is already there for you in your own question. And so the answer for you, I think, right now is you don't want to go. And, like, it'll be there, well, it'll probably be there next year. Deo Volente, right? Will there be a next year? We just talked about that. Today is today. And today it sounds like to me the priority for you is to make sure you're ready to stand firm in the faith with your wife until Jesus comes back with the Bible. And frankly, trying to do that while going to seminary and learning is going to be harder than if you get that as a habit in your life before you go to seminary. Seminary will not teach you to read the Bible with a good habit. It will not. They will not give that to you. They will tell you need to develop it, but they will not give, and they will give you a lot of bad habits. Like, here, learn Greek in 9 weeks and then don't use it for 6 weeks, right? Like that's what you're going to get. Fire hose, dogma, history, download, do your best, because, some classes the guy just reads off the notes. And this guy killed that guy. And then that guy went over there. But then this guy did that. I'm not kidding. That was 8 a.m. in the morning my last year. For an hour. Off his notes. Handwritten notes. Just names. So like don't put too much faith in your seminary experience to solidify your discipleship. Be the disciple first. Okay? And then, what should you pursue? I'd say pursue a mobile career of some kind, something that you can take with you, something that's not tied anywhere, if at all possible, somewhere where you're able to develop a value that, should you want to also be a pastor at a local pulpit through, say, the SMP program, you're able to manage your, 4-hour work week. Tim Ferriss. But no, really, like 20 hours of actual computer time, and then you live a life which you can just live as a Christian, because that's what you do. And if you live a life as a Christian and just talk about Jesus all the time, study the Bible on Sunday, you do it on Sunday morning, and then the congregation doesn't have to pay a whole lot. You're already living there, and then look at that. It works out. But all of that is just sort of like letting it come as opposed to chasing it hard. So unless you're compelled to chase it hard, and I mean, this is Tim Ferriss I just mentioned. Here he is again, right? Out of scale of 1 to 10. Scale of 1 to 10, going to seminary. What's your number? Call it out before I talk, right? Call it out. What's your number? Scale of 1 to 10. 5, 10, 9, right? Okay. If it was not an 8, 9, or 10, don't go. Pretty simple. I can explain why. Most people, if they really think something is good, but they're not into it, they'll give it a 7 or lower. And so if you gave it a 7, it means like you're really, again, being pushed out of guilt. If it was 8, no, you're actually excited. And it's a thumb trick, right? It's not a perfect law, but it's a nice way to kind of get at your own head a little bit, get around your own head and at your own conscience a little bit. So that's my encouragement to you there. Although I'll tell you what, right? Third year at Hillsdale, you got one more year. You know what you really need is a year at the Hebron Collegium. That's what you really need. Right in between. You're going to finish that year at Hillsdale, and from now to then, I'll open up a conversation with you privately about your direction. I'll do agile coaching with you just a little bit, touch and go for this next year as you finish up your coursework. And then you'll come here and do a year course study with me designed to answer this question. What should I do? Take one more year. Now, getting married makes that tougher. So, let's get to then desire to provide versus greed, right? And gluttony. So this is hard because you're not going to get, how do I say this? Lutherans really want to be able to live sinless. We really do. For all of our doctrine of original sin, and all of our I'm a poor miserable sinner, and we say it every week, then we go and we try to keep sin like in a little tiny box where I just have some little ones to talk about, rather than just assume that we're constantly going to be wrestling the most diabolical thoughts imaginable, that you're going to have these very, very horrible temptations that arise in your life, and that Christianity is like saying, oh, like this body of death, who shall rescue me? Right? Jesus shall, and so forth. So as you go about providing for your family, rather than saying, how do I avoid greed? How about you just go into it saying, I'm going to need to repent of greed every day. How do I learn to do that as a young man who doesn't feel that yet? Because I obviously don't know it, because someone just had to tell me it on a show, right? So like you write it down. I'm going to start by repenting of greed every day, and then asking myself, what would that look like? How would I do that? What psalm would I use every morning to start? Oh, wait, Unless Jesus Christ builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. That's a good one. Sons of Solomon.net, number 3 in the morning. Okay, like it's there for you already, right? But to recognize that, if the watchman is staying awake and watching the city, and Jesus wants him to get stabbed in the back by an assassin ninja that he never saw coming, well, that's what's going to happen. And if Jesus wants him to turn around at the last minute because the ninja sniffed, well, that's what's going to happen. That's Psalm 127, which then talks about not just your life, but then bearing children, building a house. Fruit of the womb, sons, arrows, quivers, enemies, gates. Like, what a psalm. Start there with you're not going to avoid greed. You're going to fight against the greed you have. From there, I would say the next thing isn't like, what are you going to enjoy doing? Because even the pagans know that if you decide to spend a lot of time figuring out what your perfect dream is and then try to follow your perfect dream with all the options in the world, you can be anything. All you're going to get is a lot of disappointment and not starting. Masters become masters because someone disciplined them enough to find the love in what they're doing. Does that make sense? Should I say it again? Yeah. Someone outside of them kept them going until they fell in love with it. Okay. So the question isn't what are you in love with? The question is more like, what do you hate? What could you not do? Write down on a piece of paper 10 things you could not do with the rest of your life and let it fly. Be like everything from, develop vaccine technology to, did I say the word? I said the word. Everything from that to backpack through Europe. Like put, what would I not do though? This isn't a bucket list. This is a bucket not list. Abandon the faith, right? Put that one on there, right? Do 10, do 20, do more. Right? Figure out what your principles are by figuring out what you refuse to budge on. Right? And then from there, when you know what you won't do, ask, well, what does that leave? Right? Well, I can be an artist in a beachside residence with people who buy my art. Well, okay. More of this repenting needing to happen in your life, probably. No, really, then when you figure out what you can do, like you wouldn't hate life doing that. And it's not, magical Christmas land success. It's wire houses. I can go in and change a wiring, figure out how to do that. I mean, really, how much can you do until you have to like pull wire? Like it's a limited thing. You need to be vested in certain states and all this kind of stuff. But so then you go do that, right? And believing that because it's natural, anything you would do that is according to nature, if you get good at it, you're going to become a master at it. It'll be a craft to you. It won't just be a thing you do. This is where like computer work at a desk, you never really get to be a craftsman at computer work at the desk. Not unless your name's in lights. Okay. But the guy who gets to go and just put the toilet in, I mean, he doesn't have to be a craftsman. A lot of them aren't, but you can be.
Yeah. Your mother recently had to do a lot of alterations to a bathroom that she's using, and
right.
Her craftsman, I don't even know what he would be called.
That contractor. Mm-hmm.
He was an artist, a student of art, and he realized he couldn't make a living that way, and so he puts the love of art into what he does to a point where he'll cut tile in a way that it fits precisely. I mean, it shows in the end result of his creation
and the time and the work on it. So then, but back to now, greed versus provision. You're going to have to pick something that is sufficient for the place you're going to live to provide there. That's going to be different in different places, and what people believe sufficient is different. So I said a moment ago, it is ordained that he who preaches the gospel shall make his living by the gospel. But what that word living means does not include a 401k, right? Not in the Bible it doesn't. You might get one as a pastor, but it's not what he will get his living means, right? Daily bread doesn't mean indoor plumbing. I'm really thankful for indoor plumbing. I continue to pray that God would give in my daily bread portion indoor plumbing. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you can't have indoor plumbing. Oh my gosh, what a crazy world where we have to defend ourselves like this in the conversation we're having publicly about the idea. It's enough to make me short circuit. And there, I did it. I short circuited. Indoor plumbing, being grateful for it. Where was it? I short circuited with my rage against the machine. Providing. What is a living?
What does it look
what
like?
Does a living
where
actually
you live?
count, right? And so, what this gets back to, what will you not do? What will you not put up with?
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you're going to do this as a mathematician, I would figure out some real hard numbers. Now, I've learned this year that not all mathematicians like math the same way, and so maybe this isn't the kind of numbers you're used to, statistics and crunching, right? But get some real hard numbers on what a living really costs. And what that looks like, and then you can scratch off certain things that you're going to have to go do, right? The fact is this, though, most stupid people make a living, right? They do it by doing things that you won't do, probably. This is the challenge. You're intellectual. You can only do certain things, and they do things you won't do, like stand at a car wash and wave someone through and point and then say good and then do it, and they get $20 an hour to do that, and they do it 40 hours a week, and they do that all month long, and they can't really take vacations, but they eat, they have a warm house, apartment, something like that, and so, like, what are you willing to put up with is the question, and then what are you doing this for? Two incomes can change things quite a bit, right? But that's an exchange you make early on in the marital relationship that then you can't really look back from, right? It's really hard to kind of rewind 12 years in and decide I'm staying home. It can be done, but it's a big jump kind of thing, right? So in all of this then, I think I would be remiss to not say you probably want a lot more than you should. Your eyes are way wider than they ought to be. There's way more darkness sold to you as fool's gold, and hope and dream that's lie. And so beware, right? Beware. Another thing that Dr. Kuntz said a couple years ago, he said, I just don't understand how every American thinks he'll be rich someday. And I was like, every American? He's like, just start listening. And then I'm like, well, I think I'm going to be rich. Wait a minute. So yeah, what's rich? Today is today. Find out what you won't do, and then do something else, and let Jesus build the house. Trust that over time it'll work out, and that less often is more. Often, not always. I know you can add more to that. It wasn't a bad answer.
No, it was a fabulous answer. I don't even know that I could add anything to it. I think the concept of everybody wanting to be rich made me remember how overwhelmed I feel when I go into, like, if I go to an estate sale of a home that's large. It overwhelms me to think of how much time and energy it would take to care for it.
Yeah, right.
And so, that's scriptural too. Christ warns about how riches, they take your focus. Yeah. And so the peaceful and quiet life is definitely something that I desire and I'm thankful. I love. Now, Sweet Rabbit lives in a bathroom that's all the way on the east end of our home. But otherwise, I can vacuum our whole house just plugging it in one place.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
So
I got to figure out where that one is.
And it's frustrating if you think I have to unplug and move to a different plug.
That's why Amazon has iRobot to vacuum your house for you and learn about everything you do.
Oh, but everything breaks.
It sure does.
Oh, everything.
It sure does.
Not built the way it was.
I just had another kind of semi-revolutionary thought for our friend Caleb here. I told him to come, after his 4th year. You know what would really be the most valuable? You got to talk to your administrators, though, on this. You got to tell them, look, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. I want to take a year at this think tank school startup thing. Let me tell you about it. You wouldn't even know, but it'd be good. Hillsdale students could do this often, in fact, and it would be awesome, glorious even, come here for a quarter, which would be like the fall quarter, or for the fall and the spring next year, and ask that question with me, right? Well, what do I do? And then you go back, ready to get married, maybe even in your senior year, right? And run from there, run toward the tomb and beyond. So that's my invite to you, Caleb. Glad to help. Agile coach, Google that term, see what it means. Google, I said Google is a verb. Someone hurt me, so I don't do it again. Google is a verb. Shouldn't. That's bad. That's the beast. Search for that term. Discover the meaning of that term.
There you go.
Discover. Number 2. It's got a little praise. Let's see here. Can I do it from there? Those sound effects, we paid for those. Jill says, hi, I just wanted to share a praise with you about praying the Psalms. As per your suggestion, I have been reading and praying through 8 verses of Psalm 119 each morning. After reading through the verses for myself, I am going back and praying them specifically for my adult children, their friends, my friends, spouse, congregation, etc. Recently, Jesus graciously gave me a glimpse of fruit coming from the mouth of my daughter. The words of the psalm are so good to pray for those who you desire to lead into a greater love of the Lord and His Word. I am overjoyed because there have been many dark days and much fear that the pull of the world would be greater than the pull of the Spirit. I wanted to share this for parents out there who are struggling in this way with their younger people. The glimmer of fruit has bolstered my confidence in the power of this prayer and the practice of calling to God to fulfill His baptismal promises for your children, regardless of what the world has to offer. And on that, let me suggest then you try a similar kind of experiment with Psalm 37. That's not what's on the screen here right now, but Psalm 37 also has sort of that dynamic power of wisdom that Psalm 119 has when you then don't go too fast. When you, instead of trying to read it like it's a book and a story or a movie, trying to watch it like a movie is really what you're trying to do. Instead, you read it like an epic poem over time. So splitting Psalm 37 up into 1 or 2 verses a day over the course of a week or a couple weeks, and then doing that repeatedly, I've found to be just as fruitful as Psalm 119. And then the one I've been, also a long one, but worthily reading every day, like I cannot be disappointed in some part of this psalm every day, is 89. As just such a total power-packed, everything's there. Psalm 119 is on the screen for you, just so if you're a listener, you can't see it. If you're a viewer, you can. But to try to walk through what's she talking about. This is in the Sons of Solomon booklet. This is on, oh no, it used to be. Yeah, it's on the last page, 26, additional disciplines, the word and way, 8 verses of Psalm 119, 3 to 7 times daily on a 22-day cycle or some other cycle that you make up for yourself with it, which of course is cool. What does that mean? Why 8 verses? Well, if you do look at Psalm 119, you'll see it's broken in English and in Hebrew into 8 verse stanzas, 22 of them, one for each letter of the Hebrew alphabet, which is probably there as a Hebrew letter and as an English word between each sets of verses. And the suggestion here is that you open to Psalm 119 verses 1 through 8 tomorrow morning. You read it out loud sometime throughout the day, 3 times, 7 times. How often can you do it? It's hard. You'll look at that Bible, you'll be like, oh, I don't want to do that. And it's like, well, do it anyway, right? And see what happens if you get Psalm 119 verse 1 through 8 out 3 times tomorrow throughout the day. And then the next day, do Baith. And the next day, do is it cough? I think it's cough, right? All the way through 3 to 7 times. There's no failure. Did you do it in the morning? Then you didn't fail. Did you not do it in the morning? You still didn't fail. Do it today, right? It's not about, did I perfectly do this thing? It's about letting it have the time to do its work on you. Yeah. And I'll just share that for the record, and having done that for several years, and kind of frustrated that I hadn't memorized more of it yet by that process, I now am doing MAME every day. I'm just doing MAME every day. It's my favorite one, and all of it. There's a bunch of good ones, but it's my favorite one, and I want to get it memorized. So my Psalm 119 practice has grown into the let's see if I can start imbibing it even more way. Like I didn't get bored with MAME. Like I was like, man, I have to start over again and get all the way to MAME so I can have MAME again, right? And the other ones are all good too. Don't get me wrong. But so there you go, Psalm 119 challenge. And now for parents, her suggestion is that you pray this not only for yourself, but for your family, for your children, according to their promises in their baptism that they received from God. Last night I read Psalm 144 out loud to the Hebron community in saying goodbye to our young student, our young fellow. And I changed it though. The whole thing's written in first person, I, me, and I prayed it as we, us. Not because I think that the word needs to be improved or would be better or we should change how it's written in the Bible, but for the sake of the prayer at that moment, I was praying for us. And I wanted that to be clear. And so to take Psalm 119 then, oh Lord, I love your law, and just say, oh Lord, we love your law. Even if the person you're praying for doesn't, if you have the vocation for them to be in your household under your authority, they kind of do, right? And so pray it that way. And she's saying it's borne fruit in her life to do that. So you want to
that's really
add anything
exciting.
to that?
It's fun to hear different people's experiences of how they've been blessed by putting more scripture, specifically the Psalter, into their life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've been really exploring that this month for you, right? Like, we stayed at this house with some Bible verses on walls, and like off we go. Like it's suddenly, like, why weren't we doing this all along? And we kind of wanted to, but somehow like, the fire got lit a little hotter, or whatever was on the back burner moved forward.
Well, yeah, when we had the opportunity to stay in somebody else's home that had decorated with different items that had a Bible verse on it. So, like, for example, the cutting board in the kitchen had a Bible verse written on it, and you every time you cut an onion, you're like reading this Bible verse. And I thought that was a very edifying, I don't know if edifying is the right word. I think it is. I think it was an edifying way of having items with the scripture on it that would turn my mind towards Christ. And we talked about having the same words in our mouths as a family, so that when we come together, our communication is that much more deep. And if you have in your home, we'll just keep this example. If you have in your home a cutting board that everybody uses with this Bible verse on it, even if you don't see it every time,
you're going to know it.
You're going to know it, and it will change the way that you start to think.
Yep.
So even if at first you start out trying to critique the verse that's written,
still, it calls for wisdom, does it not?
Still making you think on Scripture and meditate upon Scripture. So that concept was eye-opening to me.
So incise your gates and let the spittle flow. Sons of Solomon, Dark Shore, circa summertime 2020, in development, and the whole thing is based upon David fleeing to Gath. He ends up in Ziklag with the family because he's serving the kings of Philistia, and he had his practical strategy for survival is to write stuff on the walls of his house, carve it in the wood, and to feign that he's not a danger. He's just a little crazy.
Yeah.
Seems like a good strategy to me. Been putting it to practice. Believing that he wasn't just writing nonsense on his wall. He was writing the word of God on his wall, right? Because Torah says to.
Yeah.
Cut it on the gates, right? On the door of your house, all that. Talk on the way, all that, right? So it's right there. And then, let the spittle flow is just, and then, if other people think you're crazy, so what? if they think you're crazy because of the word of God, right? If you think you're crazy because you are, I mean, that's a different it's a different thing. But if they think you're crazy because of what you put on your wall, which is the word of God, that has changed you.
Yeah. Well, and why are we letting that person...
That's it.
Dictate to us what to do.
Right. Whose religion is telling the story you are feeling?
I was just thinking about this. So question. Our dining room is in need of painting. And I thought to myself, what if I painted it and then invited, the space behind your seat? Mm-hmm. I mean, you wouldn't benefit from it at meal times necessarily, but invited people to just write Bible verses on that wall. Is that weird?
Let's talk more about it. I if you can merge that idea with what I got going on over here somehow.
Because you have to have images. See, that's the images I'm not having
easy
trouble
now.
with.
Slow down. No.
Okay.
No. What's cool to me about the dream board, prayer board, I don't know what to call it, art.
What? Talk about it now, because people are like, what?
The thing about this piece of art...
He's pointing at Meridith, but there's nothing there.
I'm pointing behind. It's back over there. Is that it's not finished.
Okay.
So what you see is images, which wouldn't be what we would do out there. But what you see as images is a framework for information.
Yeah.
That I'm going to gradually cover with words that fill that hole, and then I'm going to be able to read it. I already do. I read it in the morning. It's one of the first things I do. It's the best journal I've ever had. I want to go back and read it because it's amazing. So what we would do with that wall is we would design the framework for a certain story of theology that we would develop together in conversation as a family with my headship. And then we would each have the time to contemplate what our addition to it would be, or to contemplate it all together and then work on it as one big thing. But definitely to do a mural testament, that sounds awesome. Wait, third time's charm. That sounds glorious.
Yes, yeah. I was like, glorifying? No.
Our God is an awesome God, but awesome is such a weaker word than glorious. It's so much diminished from glorious.
Glorious. Yeah, well, I mean, I thought about it, and I see how your mind is going towards planning it out a lot. And I thought, what if we had more freedom?
That's what the framework's for.
And then, okay.
The framework gives you freedom.
Because if you put Sharpie on your wall, you can paint over it again.
You absolutely can. And I'd be all for that too. So that's kind of where
I was like, well, if it looks weird and we all just don't like it.
Yeah, but if you will let me
absolutely.
Draw the first frame, and it would be a frame that would give everyone a space where they can be as free as they want to be, but that I would give some thought to it as to no matter what we did, the frame would still work. And so that's going to be like, it's not quite paint by numbers, but kind of a little bit, right? So it's not any Bible verse, right? It's a Bible verse about this kind of thing, right? And so giving that parameter can really, I think, manifest itself as a piece of art, pretty cool, piece of group art.
Sure.
The way that our journal is, I think you should share this. Hold on.
Oh, I have two microphones next to each other. Is that going to be a problem?
Is it making noise?
I don't know. I don't have the headphones on.
So, I think you should share this with everybody out there as an idea, because I think the person who receives this is going to love it. I think it's an idea that is not that hard to do if you do have a large family dynamic for people you care about. And I'm not done yet, but I have finished my one contribution. It's not my best work. I'm trying to I'll stop.
Well, okay. So, and that's where with this idea of writing on the wall, I'm like, I don't want people to feel like they have to make it perfect, because essentially,
I love what I'm showing you.
The imperfection is like the fact that the 5-year-old can't quite make all their letters go the right direction.
Yeah.
Like that imprints a time and a space of the family on the wall.
Yeah. No, I think that's cool.
Instead of putting a picture of the child at 5.
Absolutely.
It's like.
Yep.
So this is a journal that we put together for a woman that I have adopted into my life. She's a family friend. Mm-hmm. And so the kiddos call her grandma, that type of a family friend. And recently, I mean, how far do you want, like, should I just explain the whole thing?
Yeah, show off some of the images and just explain the concept. Because I don't think it's that tough a concept.
The idea is that she has quiet time every morning, and she will read scripture, and then she'll write either prayers for people or gratitudes, thanksgivings that she's thinking on or excited about that God has blessed her with. And so when she turned 80, we decided to give her this little gratitude journal as kind of the more secular way of looking at it.
Right.
And in the front, it has 80 different reasons why we thank Jesus for her. But then on each of the other pages, the kids and then Jonathan and myself have decorated. So here's Jonathan's spread that he did. Can I do it?
Yeah, kind of.
Kind of. There we go. So it's a.
So like
you've got
on the page, you've got kind of the pre-bullet journal work has been done on every page in this thing. There's that one was done by the boy. It's good stuff, right? Here's a cross page spread done by one of the girls. And so the person has this super personalized journal, blank journal, and I just think it's such a great idea of a way to do group art as a family. There's a lot of Bible verses that got put in there, which then does the same thing. It's gonna feed her the word. So
yeah, what did yours say? It said born again.
Oh, I think one of them is born again to a living hope, and then. The other one I wasn't expecting, so it kind of surprised me. I ended up doing it. I used the "Blessed is the man whose delight is in the law of Jesus Christ," which was our theme, and the tree, like a tree by James of Water
cool.
art. So using art that I've done other places, and trying to reimagine it a little bit with some different colors and a little less intensity than the. You once told me my art looked angry. For putting, I
don't know. There's probably a better way to put it.
Fisk roaring, raging fire. There is fire inside of me. I got some rage, and some of that's good, in fact. But at the time, I didn't know that or hadn't learned how to be that man. But I'm aware still, nonetheless, that when I draw with a very rough masculine edge. Like it's just there's no question that was by someone who considers himself. His pronouns are male. Yeah. Right. And so trying to explore a softer
I don't know that you have to necessarily change yourself.
I mean, no, it's not changing myself. It's just growth, right? So
well, and then the thing about art is, and this is what I was trying to say, is like you have a style and your art is your art.
Yeah, right.
I don't have to like it.
Hone it.
I don't have to like other people's, like I don't have to like Monet.
Right. Oh,
it's
no,
okay.
No, you have to. You're wrong if you don't.
And that's the thing about certain mindsets, like
bipolar thinking. Golly, no medium, no in between.
I can appreciate the colors you used. I can appreciate the emotion that you're putting forward. I don't have to like hang it on my wall.
No.
For it to be worth it.
No, that's true.
And that's
no the thing that why I'm talking about the art at all is my own joy in discovering that it's just good to just do it. Like
it is.
Whatever else it is. And if you think you're just going to go do it and be good at it the first time, like you didn't learn anything that way. So like you just have to go and pick a medium, right? Mm-hmm. So gel pen on 6x4 card has been my medium for several years now. And you just scribble until your scribbles make sense. And then over time, your scribbles turn out something else, and it will become what you can do. And of course, you can study others and imitate and all this kind of stuff. But the real art is just the freedom to express yourself with a medium, right? You know.
Well, if we think about like that, that's exactly right. The freedom to express yourself, which is slowly with a medium, but it's slowly being taken from us to a point where I recently saw an image of a symbol of our country, and then it had a tagline. It talked about the type of a land that we live in, and it kind of hurt just a little bit, especially this week with different things that have been taken from me. It was like, yeah, I'm not feeling it. Not feeling the
free?
The free. And so to step away from Pinterest and step away from YouTube that is showing you all these images of how to draw and what is pretty and what isn't pretty, you know, maybe just explore the freedom of expressing yourself on a piece of paper and knowing that it's an expression of you. And you are uniquely made. And so it is beautiful in its own way. There are parts of it that are going to be beautiful. And then there are other people that will find it beautiful. Even if everybody doesn't, it will speak to others. And I don't know, maybe is that the concept behind modern art?
Yeah, a little bit.
Be.
Oh, there's some truth to the idea. Again, there's some truth to the idea that the world is not all black or white, but that there are shades, that there is a medium between the poles, and that medium is where understanding, distinction, communication actually happens, and that's how all information works. And then when we say art, we usually mean information that isn't words. But now we're talking about word art, so you know it overlaps,
well, and today,
right?
Yeah, word art is huge,
and fonts and all this kind of stuff. But what you're trying to share is that for you as a spirit, as a creature, to make a mark, and to be like not hating that mark initially, so that you can go back and you can make a mark again. That's discovery in its own way. It's like, well, what can I do? And yeah, maybe your fingers are too fat to play piano. Maybe they're not. You can only play so much. But like, you only learn that by trying. Yeah. Again.
And oftentimes we focus so much on the result rather than the process of doing. And it's so much of it is the process of doing.
It's amazing how much fear. So the Heart of Wisdom #2 is behind you. Up there, it is a piece that is not finished but is for sale. And
what do you have to do still?
I have to put the Bible verse riddle reference on it so that you know what it means. If you don't speak Hebrew or read my font of Hebrew, how do you know what this is about? And the Bible verse reference will give that away, I think, pretty clearly. This version 2 again, trying to improve on the medium, and why I pointed out and say it is that it's incredible how much fear, visceral, physical fear, I had to psychologically push my body through to try again to do something I'd already done that was successful.
Interesting.
Mainly because of my self-knowledge that I don't know what I'm doing with paint on, repurposed wood, the way that I can draw that again on a 6x4 card with a gel pen in a second. I don't have a problem. Just do it over and over and over again. But to do it on this medium now is terrifying, because if I mess up, there's no going back. There's no new 6x4 that I can just pull out, right? It's like, and so that has been similar to like the what do we call this? When you won't get to your project, procrastination, consternation, similar to the tendency to not want to get on the mat. So you love jiu-jitsu except for when you're going to it? It's weird in this like spiritual battle. Like, no, don't do it today. You don't need to do it today. Why would you do it today? You don't really want to do it today. You're too tired today. Like same kind of like fear blockade against where you're willing yourself to go. So like you have to fight your own willpower. It's weird, right? And art is that. And so I share all this then to say that the discipline of doing it when you don't feel like you can and doing it anyway, even though it's not good enough, and you're going to do it anyway, and you're going to do it anyway, and I love this, is what happens later. Because I love it. But you have to push through that initial fear, which is the learning process, I think. The fear is the moment of non-understanding. I don't know what to do. Yeah, I got to learn.
Yeah.
And part of that's going to involve making mistakes. Always.
I would think that if you were to make a mistake, and then get another one, another canvas, or this isn't a canvas, it's like repurposed wood kind of frame.
Right.
And then try again. And if you misstep again, and then you finally make it, like you would sell them all together. And you have, like, come on, it's art. You can creatively come up with an idea of what this is. Like, you're talking about the heart of wisdom. And how many times do we seek after a heart of wisdom and miss the mark? And then you've got this piece of art that is trifold in it, or has a trinity in it, because it's three of them. And then one of them, you kind of did it.
That's interesting.
It is finished.
Well, it's like the other. Hold on. So as I was working on the second round of Heart of Wisdom, I decided I should try painting on repurposed wood more before I did the one that is behind you there. And so I just started working on like, what does Hebrew calligraphy look like? And you can see there's a wide diversity of stroke types here, because I'm just trying to figure out what the brush does, and trying to figure out how to take what I know how to do. There's the light. Really,
what do those say?
They're all the same. Every single one of these is the same. Okay. So let's go here. It's starting on this end, right? Let the ath kakma umusa. Ran out of space. Yeah. La the ath kakma umu.
Yes.
Right. Here it is. La the ath kakma umus. All right, last one. And the last one, I finally start to get, ooh, can you see the lettering? It started to work. Look at the difference. Took 4 tries. Look at it. That.
Yeah.
To that. All right, 4 tries. La da'ath kakma umus. Oh, look, I got it all on. The whole thing's there. Musar, it's all there. It's just a little bit off the edge versus how pretty it starts. So apparently I need more pieces of wood.
And what does that say in Hebrew?
And
in English.
And
it's Hebrew for what?
A lot of this was also learning which brushes I needed and so forth, right? And then how to paint against the grain. Ladat kakma umusar is the first 3 words of Proverbs 1 verse 2. The first 3 words then in the first stanza of Proverbs 1 through 9. And what I submit to the world as Solomon's own inspired and without error philosophy of epistemology and language, information, knowledge, whatever you want to call it. And the first 3 words hold it all, and then it unfolds like a flower into more. Those words are to know wisdom and discipline, or most Bibles will say to know wisdom and instruction, which doesn't seem like much until you ask yourself why he wrote it. And assume he was wiser than you, and foresaw the fact that you wouldn't pay attention to it and that you would need to go back to it, and planned that. So I share all of that mainly to say, like, so now I have all this kind of leftover trying stuff, right? And for me, this gets to what you're saying, like, these become their own type of thing now when you put them with each other, right? And now, if you were to somehow mix this as a background as opposed to the main piece, you know, you start building on the layering of what you're doing. And I did that on purpose with these because I knew I wanted to practice. I knew I needed a certain type of wood. This was the cheapest one I could find. And I thought, well, whatever comes of it, I'll repurpose it into some other art piece somehow, some way for fun.
Well, and as I've been refurbishing furniture, I'm learning paint's not permanent. You can just sand that off and go start again, my friend.
Right. No, that's kind of cool to think about.
Or you could paint over it.
I learned that with my coffee cup.
So
I lost my Rudy cigars. It's too bad.
No more emblem, huh?
No more emblem. Hey, we do got more from y'all out there in TV land. Pastor Bukes says, I shared your old Wii TV video, not until I say I do, on dating with many a young person. I shared it with a young lady recently, and she found it very helpful, but asked, what if a boy acts differently around other people than he would act with me alone? How would I know if I didn't spend time with him? Meaning alone, right? I have some direction to give her, but told her that I'd reach out to you to find out how you'd answer the question. It must have come up along the way. What do you say? Also, is there anything you'd say differently on the subject of dating after another 12 years of reflection from that video 12 years ago? Not until I say I do is the second, I think, most popular video, maybe the third that I ever made. Of course, rapping always escalates things to the highest order.
You should rap a video about dating. Jonathan.
So that'd take more
go
planning.
Viral.
So right now, I almost had a first line.
He's that good.
What was his question?
He wants to know.
Oh,
so she's curious about his behavior in a group setting versus behavior in a private setting.
Yeah. So
then, is there anything you would add to the video
from
now?
Before or change? There's two then real questions here, or two answers, and one of them is it's almost barbaric, but it's just like I say, don't spend time, holding hands, because it will mislead you. And comes back something like, don't I need to spend time alone with him? And if you can just see that before 1960, no one in the history of the world ever thought that. Ever. Once. There's a story about a lady named Dinah. Read it. Genesis 12? 12? Huh? You don't have to look it up, but read it. Okay. Now, having said that, I want to acknowledge the perceptive question. Okay? Which is that, what if he's faking it to win me? Good question, lady. Okay? Good question. But just don't assume the answer is to do this thing no one ever did before feminism destroyed us. Okay? Like let's rewind to the solution was never well, there's this young man here, he'd like to marry my daughter. To find out whether it'll work out, let's send him off alone tonight for a while, see what happens. Like what? You
don't put two kinds of hamster in one cage for a night just to see.
Yes, thank you. But maybe they won't like each other's kisses. Like, is that your fear? Flesh has fear, but so two answers again. The obvious, don't fall down the rabbit hole of being alone as a young couple, where you cannot be held accountable directly. Don't risk your own love for each other with that. And then from there, how do I know he's not just playing a game to get me? And this is where I think the advice I gave in the video still remains and stands. I don't think I would change anything. I haven't watched it again in preparation for this, so maybe I there's
we
a
might
line
do that.
there.
That'd be interesting.
Well, believe it or not, we're working on a re-release of, I think, either 1 or 3 minute long summary, re-chopped up, to be put on TikTok. So
ding, ding.
yeah, so you can see where we're going a little bit, right? So again, scrolling back to how do I know if he's authentic? And that very perceptive recognition that there is a massive difference between someone's public persona and their private persona. Massive difference. Mm-hmm. Now, how do you get the man that you're going to marry to reveal to you his private persona, while there's still no guarantees and you're not actually getting intimate? There's only public meetings, but he needs to show you his private persona in public. That's where dating the family is powerful stuff. Okay, if the whole thing is in house and he's courting the family, it's much more difficult for him to trick everybody. He would have to be a psychopath. Such people do exist. But he would think about it this way: a family who all speaks the language of the Bible to each other, and he comes in, he's like, "I speak the language of the Bible, gobbly-gookity bookity bookity," and you're all like, "Well, that was interesting." Okay, and you keep going. And he goes, "Gobbly gobbly bookity bookity." He keeps speaking things that don't jive.
Yeah. Right.
And so, someone's going to pick it up. The emperor's got no clothes. Does anyone notice? The emperor's got no. Like, someone's going to say it, right? Because wisdom is obvious, wisdom is evident, and if you're studying wisdom together, then his folly will be obvious. So, I'm not saying I have the clincher. Fisk has figured out how to justify your children with your works. Like no. But what I am saying is that the spirit of Christianity is a different spirit than the spirit of the world, and that you can spend enough time with a person to find out how worldly they are, regardless of what they say they believe. And just because they're very worldly doesn't mean they don't believe what they say. It just means that it's not all the same thing inside their head all the time, which means when you get a home alone with them, you're going to get the worst side of them always. So if they don't have integrity and consistency in public, well, I mean, what's it going to be like at home? The hypocrisy is going to be even greater, right? So in this, you're on the hunt for integrity. You want a man of integrity. You want a man who believes he believes. He wants to believe. He's convinced he's going to believe the rest of his life. This is part of what he is, right? As opposed to a guy who's like, yeah, I'm a Lutheran. I grew up Lutheran and stuff. I went to Lutheran school. Law gospel. High five. like that's tribal signaling for obedience in a non-thinking cult is what that is. Just say the secret handshake. We're all good now, right? Okay, now we can be a fraternity and help each other, right? And so, yeah, I don't think, Pastor, that I would change much. Obviously, I'd say it differently. I'm an older man now. I probably wouldn't quite dance the same way. I might. I don't know.
What is the premise of the show? There are different things I'm sure you lay down.
For not until I say I do. The premise is that he doesn't get to touch you until you have said I do. And
that's it.
That as an idea, as a challenging idea, is so full of wisdom that if you just think it through slowly over time, you'll find the gray medium of whatever it needs to mean. But the premise again is, don't pretend for a second that touching hands doesn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. And what it means is you're about to have sex. I know you're only 12 and you haven't thought this through. And I know the word about to you means right now as opposed to 2 years from now. But you're a small person on a small planet in a giant universe where things go the same way over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And so if you're touching hands at 12, you're not getting to 23 faithfully. So that's the premise.
What you're saying is that there is a mating dance.
Yes.
Just like we can observe in some of these rainforest birds.
Yep, and it's physical.
And when it starts,
and primal,
you can't really stop its
the individual by him or herself has not proven capable in human history of resisting the urges, even while protesting how much they want to resist the urges. And so communities that believe in obvious things that happen over and over again, as opposed to what I think should be true, learned long ago to put some walls between a few places so that you don't have things going out of control. Mm-hmm. Of course, now we can just kill the baby, so it's fine. Do it all the time. It keeps you slaves, and we want the slaves happy and quiet and stupid, so they'll keep doing their stupid slave labor so we can fly the world and be rich. Mm. Again, read between the lines and all that. The premise is that if you want to get married, do it on purpose, and recognize that the greatest threat to you is the confusion created by premature intimacy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Which then touching instantly triggers chemically. Scientifically, you can't argue with me about this except for that you don't like it, okay? But scientifically, there's no way around what the physical human touch does as an emotional transfer, even with people you don't like. It changes energies, and that because you like her so much, this is obviously a sexual energy, guys, no matter what. And it is for her too, but she doesn't think of it that way, and it's just going to grow. Because you should get married, but maybe you shouldn't, because maybe it's the wrong person to marry. But see, you're already doing the things that are supposed to make you get married. That's the premise. And I wouldn't change that premise, because I think it's a principle that endures no matter how you apply it. I mean, if the whole society basically allowed for everyone to hold hands but never go past the wrist until 18, holding hands would be fine. But the whole society doesn't do that. So there is no limit. There's no bottom to it. So you're jumping on a train with no exit. Mm-hmm. And the video is just like, not until I say I do. I'm not on this train till I know I'm on this train. Right? And I suggest you, young people, pursue romance, love, sex, marriage, all that way, like your animals, with the Holy Spirit inside of you. That's what the Bible teaches, actually. Kind of crazy. I know. Incise your gates, let the spittle flow. Was that all the questions? I think so.
Yeah, those were the two.
Did I say I have a TikTok? Don't look at it. Don't even go. You're on YouTube. Why would we go to TikTok ever? Attack. Ray says this, Pastor Fisk, a long time ago you uploaded a video in which you talked about Jacob wrestling with the Lord and receiving his new name, Israel. Genesis 32. You proposed that the traditional view that Jacob would not let go until the Lord had blessed him, and that God could not prevail against him, was incorrect, and that the roles were reversed. Jacob was pleading for God to release him. Jacob could not prevail, and God would not release him until he blessed him. I can't find the video where you talked about this, so I ask you now if you could explain your view and break down why you hold it, if you still hold to it, that is. Thank you, and may Christ be with you and your family always. Ray. I do still hold to this. I'm willing for some, high, lifelong Hebrew-speaking Jewish rabbi to correct me, although even then I would beware of his lack of faith in the ability to discern the gospel in the text, which is where my first question about the text came when I kind of had to study it for a paper at seminary, and it obviously, as we traditionally read it, doesn't jive with salvation by grace through faith very well, because it would seem that what makes Jacob godly is his capacity to out-wrestle God, to not just wrestle with God in prayer, but to win by his own, what?
Strength.
Power. Yeah, I don't know. Will, I don't know. But like therefore, so we wrestle. And I was like, this just doesn't jive. And then I'm in the Hebrew and I'm reading along and I'm like, oh, this is not nearly as clear in Hebrew as they make it sound in English. This is like, wait, he did this and he did that and he did this and he did that and he did this and he did that and he did this and he did that. And who's he? There's two of them in this whole thing. And so without going into the entire detail of it, which we just don't have time for today, after Jacob pitches his tent for the night to prepare to meet Esau, who's coming with 400 armed men, the last time he saw him, he wants to kill him. Jacob arises and crosses the river to the other side. Is he getting closer to Esau? Is he getting further away from Esau? It doesn't say. He's by himself, though, just to face the 400 men while sleeping. Or maybe is he hiding in case the place gets attacked? That's kind of the way I see it. And then that's when God's like, gotcha. Gotcha. And boom, they wrestle through the night. And here's the he said, he did. In your English, it's going to say God and Jacob a bunch of times, where in the Hebrew, it's just the word he. And the way, I believe, it's been a while since I looked at this, the way the story goes in English, they assume that it's God did, Jacob did, God did, Jacob did, God did, Jacob did. There's never God did, God did.
Right.
Ever. There's never Jacob did, ever. In the confusing parts. I think there's actually places where things happen in a row, but they're not as confusing. So then, well, what happens if at one point in that entire thing, God does two things in a row? The whole story changes. So if he did is God twice in a row. It starts with this blessing, I will not let you go. He saw he could not escape, right? And he said, I will not let you go unless you bless me, right? So who saw that he could not escape? And really, Genesis chapter 32 is going to teach you that the Almighty God saw that he could not escape Jacob, the deceiver, who's hiding from his brother. I just don't buy it. It just doesn't ring with anything else that happens in Scripture. And yet, it all works if you just flip it here. So Jacob saw that he could not overpower God, and God said to Jacob, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Wait, why does Jacob bless we the Lord? We do it every week in church, guys. Come on, it's not that big a deal. It means say good things about me, pray to my name, call on my name, be the one I've called you to be. I've sent you with my message. You saw the angels on the ladder. Will you finally trust me when you go face Esau tomorrow? Right? I won't let you go unless you bless me. And then there's the whole tell me your name back and forth, right? Tell me your name that I might call on you, right? And so forth. And anyway, I without going into the text piece by piece, it shifts the whole thing around so that when God strikes Jacob's hip, it's because Jacob refuses to bless him until God just crushes him. So while Jacob thinks he can get away, he doesn't believe. And God has to make it very clear to Jacob, you're never escaping me. And now Jacob has a new name. God fights. Which, does it mean God fights me or God fights for me? And the answer is yes. And that's the word Israel. God fights me, God fights for me. Yes. That's the election gospel right there. Right there. It's everything we believe, right? He's a shadow of Jesus too, right? And he gets up the next day, scarred from the fight against the father, right? On behalf of his family, who he was trying not to help it out. Yeah. And he's going to limp over Penuel, the face of God, scarred with on the face of God, right? And stand before Esau, who will be like God to him, and Esau will spare him. He will accept the offering, and the family is welcomed back into the land. I mean, Esau's God the Father at Judgment Day at that moment. Even though Esau will die by horrible, probably unfaithful ends long from there, the story itself paints this narrative of both a redeemer, broken head, and the God who fights for his chosen by crushing him.
Yeah,
so
beautiful.
that he overcomes. Yeah, it's amazing. So, and it just takes that one little shift in he said, she said, right? Who's doing who, what in the he's. Yeah, that's the kind of living color you find in the original text, is that stuff. It's all over. All right, so that was our final question for the day. We got about 20 minutes here to keep chatting about whatever's.
So
you wanted me to explain the dream board, so I probably should explain that too.
Well, I mean, it just because you were mentioning it, I didn't know if podcast-wise that would even be, and also on YouTube because you can't even see it on the screen. In
Sanka Aaron's How to Take Smart Notes, start there. If you don't know anything, if everything I say from here is like stupidity, right? Start with Sanka Aaron's How to Take Smart Notes. I've been chasing that rabbit for a couple years, 2.5 years now. What is the real application of this to not only my own life, but then also how do I capture those first principles so I can share it with others in an easier way than Sanka Aaron's Smart Notes book is, because it's a pretty dense kind of read for how small it is. And a big part of the theory is that information has a capacity to dock with itself in ways you don't expect, but which you are uniquely designed to discover. So I hold up this word, and you can find a word between them like this. Supercomputers can't do that, right? There's this unique intuitive leaping that the human mind does. And then the Smart Note theory says it builds on how to manage and benefit information from that insight. Okay. And a big part of this is this idea called a slip box. And the idea behind the slip box, which really just means a box with paper in it. Okay. Like slips of paper in a box. It's a really bad name for it.
And where do these slips of paper come from?
Your notes, all your notes, but it's not all your notes. The idea is that if you guard a box that only gets your best notes, only your out, it's not an archive. It's just the complete truth, right? You trust it implicitly. Any card you pull out at any time says something right now and it means truth, right? If you pursue that box can get so big that you actually need like walls in your house with drawers to take care, and then posthumously they can publish 35 books in your name. The guy who invented this is what happened. Right? They just found 35 books on random scholastic topics, finished in his basement, because he just only put into this box what he could trust, and it grew over time. So there's a lot behind why that works. And applying that principle, my mom once told me a story though about her grandpa's or maybe I read a story. Maybe I watched a movie. I don't even know. Grandpa had like this screw box where all the screws go in, but it was like the magic screw box. Like you could always find the screw you needed in that box. Pretty much, he never bought screws. Like he's always had screws that he needed. And so this idea that a box captures information and contains chaos, so that it's okay to have the chaos in the box as long as the chaos is in the box. And that applies as a fractal reality to 6x4 cards and to your desktop and to the TV. Like anything that's a box with information, you can start smarting it through the process of limiting what's in it, getting the dross, the lies out, so the resource itself becomes purified. So I have a bunch of these going. I have more than one slip box. You can call this whole room a slip box, actually. It's developing a framework for capturing it all. And one of the things that I've discovered is that different ways of keeping notes provide different tools. So like right now, one of my favorite things is this box. I love this box. This box is amazing. Look, this box is full of notes. The notes in this box, they're all separated by little chunks of like clips, right? I know exactly what's in this box. I can find it instantly. I couldn't tell you what is in this box right now. But if I need it and it's in this box, I know it's there. Why is that? Well, because that box has been built as a certain kind of slip box. There's certain types of information that's just always there, and I know what kind of information is there. To describe it as a first principle, it wouldn't fit with the way you work. You don't work in exclusively 6x4 cards like I do, right? So I need this level. So there's lots of different ways to apply this concept. And one of the primary ways I'm struggling with then is the desktop itself. Like, where is your workbench, your workspace? How do you have cards on it without it going crazy and taking over? Okay. Well, I decided to build a couple desktops that you could hang on walls. One's covered with leather and has some straps on it. It's basically a memory board. Got a couple other attempts at the memory board, trying to kind of explore what it could be useful for. But while I was doing that project, I also made a memory board that was just a collage of art that I could use as a pin board. I used a canvas, put collage on it, and it's just going to be a pin board so I can pin up notes I want to remember. And as I practiced with both of those slip boxes, the leather covered one and this art-based one, they function very differently than each other, right? And what's been amazing about this dream board, I don't know what else to call it still, is I didn't even realize what I was, it's not drawing, I collaged it, but like there's a story in this thing that is my prayer for the cosmos that I was not expecting to see when I looked at it again. You know, it just sat on the wall for months. I pinned some things on it and didn't played with corners of it or whatever, but like I saw it and looked at it the other day and was just like couldn't believe how my subconscious had done this. Like it was preaching to me things I needed to hear. And then again, I begun taking then cards that contained the truth that I see I drew and putting the card that says it next to the other cards that go with it when that idea grows, and watching it become an explanation of what I think that I can go back to. And so this bottom right corner, no one can see it, but there's a picture of me from when I was like 6 with my finger pointing at Jesus like John the Baptist in that great fresco. But then there's a card that from something you said a week ago or 2 weeks ago about how the first thing a man must do is convince himself he's not an imposter. And yeah, I mean, if this dream board doesn't work, then I don't know that I know what I'm talking about ever. But the thing is that it does work. I continue to find in the Smart and Onion Slip Box approach ever deeper waters of discovery of information, because God built the world to make sense. And so that's what the dream board is my own subconscious vomited out onto an image that now I can study and make sense of my own dream that I didn't know I was having. Or maybe I did know, but I didn't admit. Or it was in pictures of like post-apocalyptic America and fantasy sci-fi as opposed to where I'm actually at right now.
Okay.
Right? So translating my dream into what I actually believe as words so that I can be more convicted of it and really for me know that's what I dream. Like I didn't make that up. Like I'm not an imposter to that. I didn't fake that. Right. And since that's so key to man's development, and we've talked about rite of passage a lot, right? Since I never had a rite of passage, right? Finding the confidence. In fact, I ended up writing it after I tweeted that same thought that you shared, which is that a man's first step is he must convince himself he's not an imposter. While I was tweeting it, a couple of days later, it popped out as part of the tweet. That's what fathers are for. Mm-hmm. And then then that went up here on the board for me, so I can remember every time I go there, and I have to remember today, and I've done it every day for days now. First thing today, you're not an imposter, Jonathan. You're really a Christian. That's what fathers are for. And I immediately am drawn back to CPTSD and then drawn past it to the Father in heaven, who hasn't stopped. Yeah. So it provides so much fruit. But did I explain that enough? You could do it. I mean, make a collage out of art and then start putting your notes that you think are the best notes that you have on that collage of art. And when you take the note and it says this thing, be like, well, what picture makes me think of that? And then just do it. And then see what happens when it's all covered. I guarantee you grow and you have a good time. Easy. Unless you hate writing and pictures. So that's dream board as a concept, I think.
Well, that's what it is for you, at least.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Well, but where I'm pushing on first principles, though, is I want, if I tell you that this thing works, I want it to be something that works. Not for me, but works because it works. Doesn't mean you need to do it or use it. Not everyone needs a dream board. Not everyone's got to figure out what their demons are. But I do. And I'm not necessarily talking actual demons, although I also believe that there's not that big of a gap between. But I'm going to attack the demon by praying to Jesus, right? At the heart of my dream board, I mean, again, there was a significant piece that I added to the dream board that is not the actual collage, and that is my room crucifix is in the middle of this big piece of art now as the greatest symbol that there is, and the piece that ties all the words together. So, someday it'll be all words except for it'll be a crucifix over this wall of paper. And then what? Take a picture, take it down. Cover it all so it stays that way for, I don't know. But it does, the slip box functions like an artificial intelligence. That's kind of the crazy, not crazy, good, natural philosophy that Luhmann discovered, is that the more pure your language model gets, the more it sounds like someone's talking to you. Well, that's what AI on a computer is a language model. It's taught itself enough rules within itself that it can pick the right words at the right time. The slip box says, nature does that for you if you just get the lies out of the way. So use this container to only put truth in it, and it's going to get smarter and smarter as a guide, a journal, a mirror, a pensieve. I don't know what you want to call it. Tesseract. I like that. But I like how you've been exploring 6x4s, and you are proving my it's not my theory, proving the theory, which is that the first principles are such that if you have them, the rest of it you figure out. But it does involve a few walls here and there and some points where, okay, this is working, but this part's not working. Like you're gonna have to do that. But then because the principles are so true, just keep pushing on that, and you're gonna find your way through that. And that moment where you're like not sure what to do, that's actually the learning that it's giving you. You're getting smarter. Like, oh, I need more than a desktop. Oh, I need more than one box. Oh, I can't keep everything in this single place. Oh, I don't touch things if I don't like them. Oh, and you start having that come back to what you're doing. It's pulling back in again, right? And it purifies your thought process, not in some sort of holy way, but in an integrity way. It builds integrity. Or it'll tell you you're not building integrity, and you'll be honest about that.
Yeah.
Which is integrity. Oh.
It would seem that there's a fine line between something that is universal. Like, I definitely think that the basics are universal. And then each individual is going to bring their own flair to it, and how it helps them,
right,
or how they organize
right,
it, or how they utilize
right,
it.
But that's where then I can't show you, but I got a thing twice that big filled with notes on smart noting for the book on smart noting. I was going to just kind of crank out after Talk Them Into It 2.5 years ago, because I wrote Talk Them Into It using smart noting as an experiment in the first place. The thing is, it just continues to deepen to the level where I know that, like, if I really want to help people start, I can't write about all of it because there's too much. But there should be first principles, things that always work. And that's where I just keep digging until I can kind of congeal that. And that's where the recommendation is. So I had a lunch with a friend yesterday, and I mentioned to him, oh, I've been, he said, what's new? I said, well, nothing's new, but I've been working on smart noting for 2.5 years, and da-da-da-da-da. And he's like, oh, from all of that, what's the takeaway? I said, the 6x4 note card, use it. Blank one. Just use it. Just start. What do you mean? Just trust me. It'll do a million things you never thought of. That's it, right? And could you use 3x5? Yes. Someone might find that one more useful than the 6x4. I got a buddy that uses those, playing cards. And they're even smaller, and they're a little tougher to write on in some ways. But, that's what he ended up using. So the point is to get a blank piece of paper that's modular for yourself. Or we can get past 6x4 again and just talk about you need a box. You need a box to capture the chaos. And then you need a box for the box and a box for that box. Because each box is going to be different for the different chaos that's in it. And if you put too much different chaos in one box, then you have chaos you can't control, right? So, this box of note cards that I showed you over there, they're all the same types of piece of paper that's in the boxes over here, but they have different walls to them, right? And so you're gonna need a box for your chaos. You're gonna have to put walls around it. That's a principle. A principle is that when you look at a note, when you translate the note and elaborate on the note, it becomes more than the initial note. The information grows, right? That's a principle. Everyone can get that. So if I ever write about this, it'll be after I figure out how to make it like a PDF that's 2 pages long, which I kind of already have a little bit, although I think I could say it more succinctly on the Substack. But then there's other things like, the difference between here, do this, you'll figure it out, and this is how it works. This is why it works. Those are two different things. And I want to put them together always.
I see.
Yeah. And most people don't need the why it works. They just need it works. Let's do it, right? So, but you're exactly right. Then it works. The 6x4 works so well that you will figure out ways to box it in. Right? But if boxes contain chaos. That can really help you. When you have too much chaos, it means you don't have enough boxes.
Yeah.
And in that way, the more you can think of, so this is a box. This is a box. Oh, come on now. This is a box. I drew a box. That's a box. Right? So it can keep going down, and you're trying to fight chaos and create order. Well, layer your boxes. And then understand what the boxes mean, right? Which is so helpful to me. Then every one of a box that's like this, a deck, has a media ecology to it and how it works. That's different but overlaps with the way a piece of paper works. That's different but overlaps with the way a container works. That's different but overlaps with the way an atom works, I think. But that's that quantum physics stuff I keep pretending to know about. So here's the thing about quantum physics that's really fun, right? The only way I can know I'm wrong about quantum physics is that I have a conversation with somebody who knows so much about quantum physics that if I tell him my idea and I'm right, he could lie to me and go use it like it's worth so much money. Like it changes the world. Like it's Einstein. Okay, I'm not Einstein. But like I think I could tell someone how to figure it out. Like I know the path they're not going down. But I would need to talk to somebody who like has such a broad level of quantum physics and also distrusts string theory and has his own theory. So I'm not telling him my theory. I'm asking him if my theory is his theory. Am I on the right track? And then it might be that I've actually outpassed him, but maybe not. Because I'm thinking of it as poetry and most people are attacking it as like hard science. And I'm using biblical archetypal poetry to imagine how it works. Which is how we got to hard science from Greek philosophy, actually, by the way. The atom and the proton neutron, that's all Greek philosophy. Ionian. The ion is Ionian. So anyhow, for the end of the show, for those who are sticking around who've heard me talk about this in other avenues, who knows? Get into Proverbs. That's what you really want to do, for sure. And then dream big. Why not? The kingdom. Anything else you want to say this morning?
No, you've done a good job.
I've gone and gone. Why no? I feel like I haven't given you enough time.
Well, it's okay. You had a lot on your mind.
Yeah. Guess I do. Turning 45 will do that to a man. Oh, what? So, I mean, we can close. I'll close with this. You mentioned, it was earlier, I think it was the Mother's Day conversation. Every day is Mother's Day. And, historically, birthdays have not always been days I've enjoyed, and there's a lot of stuff behind that, but I very much spent like a year planning to have a good birthday, that no one was going to stop me.
If you give a Fisk enough time,
no one was going to stop me from getting out of my own way. Okay, since the only thing that could ruin my birthday was me. Mm-hmm. It was the only thing. Like, war could start and it'd be okay as long as I didn't throw a fit about it. Okay, like the only thing that could ruin a flashback. The only thing that could ruin my birthday is a flashback that I didn't catch, and there were probably 3 or 4 throughout the day. It was such a good day, and I wrote down on a 6x4 card the night before and left it for me. So the first thing I see in the morning is my birthday. And then I had such a good day that I made sure that the next day the first thing I saw was a card that said, "It's my birthday." And I saw it today too. It's my birthday. It's not my birthday, but like I learned a lot from this birthday. I really did. And it was so much the family and everything we've done for years as well, just coming together. And our child getting to enjoy it in her way, and then.
Well, then the funny thing is birthdays really aren't a big deal in our family. No. So.
But they're gonna be.
Like, I know you have like
bigger
this
deal.
Big. Well.
Meridith, it's Rabbit Day now. It's got to be a bigger deal.
Day, that's right.
So yeah, it's right. See, you doubted me. No. We made birthdays permanently like a very looked forward to thing in our family.
Yeah, we started a new tradition. So it just started by me messing up the word because I was holding the rabbit, and so instead of saying happy birthday, I was like happy Rabbit's Day.
I didn't know that's how it happened.
And then it was like, oh yes, and so oftentimes when I make a mistake, especially one of those types of mistakes, I just go with it. And so it was like, oh yeah, Anastasia, 16 Rabbit's Day, and so then Jonathan came into the game, like he gamified it and made it so that it had rules.
So, no, I didn't understand why it was called Rabbit's Day, and then I thought, this is kind of fun, because people do things like, 16 spankings, or you have to do this today. It's your birthday now, or we kidnap you, or whatever. It's like, okay, well, let's do Rabbit's Day then, since we all love Sweet Rabbit, and none of us ever really doesn't love Sweet Rabbit, even when we don't want Sweet Rabbit. What if on your birthday you can't say no to someone giving you Sweet Rabbit in the house? And before I was done, my youngest daughter's like, and next thing I know, there's a rabbit in my hands. And I looked at my other daughter, who has the shared birthday. I said, here you go. Because the beauty of having shared birthdays now, you can share the Rabbit Day.
Yeah.
But I think I saw Sweet Rabbit 4 or 6 times throughout the day. Once in the Jeep, like I'm getting home and there's a rabbit. There it is. And I got bags and things, right? But you can't really be mad about holding Sweet Rabbit. So it's a nice little tradition. It's a nice little tradition. I like it. Happy Rabbit's Day.
Rabbit's Day. Yeah.
Rabbit's Day. You're right. Birthdays have not been a big deal, and I think there's some good philosophical reasons why
I like it
questioned
that
it.
way. I think baptism days are super fun.
They're more important. They're more important. They're more important. But that I've erred by that, thereby making the birthday unimportant. And I am thankful to no longer feel that way about my own birthday, because then I can now look at other people's birthdays a little bit differently. So I'm really excited about that freedom to be glad I was born. And then on your birthday, to stop throughout the day and to say, it's my birthday. Well, if I have a choice, well, I'm going to do what I think I should do today, as opposed to like, I feel bad about it, which for me is a big problem a lot of the time. So it's like, I just kept not having to feel bad on my birthday. That was mainly the main thing. It's like, oh, it's my birthday. I don't feel bad about it then. And
that was something that going from childhood to adulthood, I remember the big transition was when I realized that it was my birthday. Like nobody else really has to celebrate it.
Yeah, right.
I can thank God for creating me that day. And so it became more of a quiet time. And there was this little sparkle. Now, this was before my guts gave out on me. But it was like, you know what, Meridith? If you want to go get a donut today, like you can. Yeah. And then I did. And that was when my guts had given out. It was like really not a good day.
That's funny.
Oh, it was really, really bad. But anyway, but it was that like.
But it's that freedom to say.
Quiet. You know what? The world doesn't have to celebrate me today. Yeah. For it to be a really special, peaceful, and quiet day of gratitude.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't have to suffer needlessly today. I'll suffer whatever God actually sends me, but I don't have to like make myself suffer today. And that's again, like I want to take that forward, because that really is every day. It's not just your birthday. And you weren't just born on your birthday in the sense that, like, let's say it this way. Your birthday is the day God put you here today. Right? You're here today because God put you here on your birthday, but you're here today. And so you're here for today. And so to remember that you were born today, even if it's not your birthday, it's your birthday, right? Stand up like you're alive, right? You're not dead yet. So to remember that, right. That's right. Very merry on birthday.
Many happy returns of the day. I love that. That's from Winnie the Pooh. It's Eeyore's birthday.
Many
is
happy
the
returns.
Chapter.
The British.
Yeah, they say, that's what they say. Yeah. Many happy returns of the day. Yeah. I love it.
They were very proper people once upon a time.
They don't say happy birthday. They say, it's your birthday. Many happy returns of the day. And I think that's great. That's just so.
Happy Returns Day. That's April 15th.
For real?
Tax day.
Oh.
Happy Returns Day. We're going to get out of here. We'll catch y'all next week with more Stop the White Noise. Of course, you can listen to A Brief History of Power, abriefhistorypower.com. New episode just came out yesterday or the day before, dealing with some of the ongoing controversies in the world. Well, let's leave it at that. And you can find more about the Sons of Solomon prayer discipline at sonsofsolomon.net. You can support us at subscribestar.com/RevFisk. And I think that's probably good enough.
Join us for the muster.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. If you're nearby, come by Memorial Day for that barbecue muster in the afternoon here in Lakewood Hills, Illinois. Reach out at sonsofsolomon.net. Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. That means you've been paid for. That makes you immortal now, and he's not going to be long anyway. The water seals it. The food feeds it. This is Christianity, and you should join us. That was it. Oh. You should join us. You found Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meredith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meredith.
Rock on, and hallelujah. Don't wallow in the muck with those who have no hope. Lift up your head all the more as you see the day approaching.
Was that worth $1? Click the Patreon link in the show notes to sign up. Pretty please?